9T 2458 Learning Corp. Little Red Riding Hood. Take one.
All that high energy synth, and now I'm gonna juxtapose it with me just sitting here chill drinking an Irish coffee.
I like how there's palm trees in your intro. There's no palm trees in Canada, is there?
No, well, Victoria actually had them. They did have palm trees.
Oh yeah, over there. Yeah.
But you know what that is? I stole that idea from Clary. I was talking to him yesterday about that, about the Hawaiian shirts when we were on Alley's stream.
Okay.
And I just liked wearing them because, like, I never get to wear these. I think it'd be great. It's fun. Like Bill Murray in Meatballs. And he goes,
Right.
You know why I wear them? You know, in his little economics rant he's about to do. I wear them because you can't wear it at the office. You can't wear it at church. You're not supposed to wear it out. I wear this shirt because I'm free. And I was like, damn it, that's wise.
All right.
I'm starting to finally understand those guys and like Adam Sandler and Tommy Bahama shirts making $80 million films with David Spade. I'm doing this because you can't stop me, and I'm making money for nothing.
That's right. Well, at this point, living in the South and being in my mid-50s, I feel like I'm too old to wear my Hawaiian shirts anymore. Because then
You're mid-50s?
I'm just a cliche. What?
You're in your mid-50s?
Yeah, I'm almost 56.
Jesus, dude, whatever you're exfoliating with, stick with it. That loofah, you owe that loofah. You look young. That's all I'm saying.
I owe it all to bourbon. What can I say?
Isn't that supposed to give you that giant Alec Baldwin head after a while?
Yeah, it is. I mean, alcohol is supposed to, it inflames your nose and it, puffs up your head. And my ex-wife is a heavy drinker. I'm not going to go any further, but it hasn't affected her as kindly as it has me.
Yeah, nobody believed us. Rolo and I had an episode of Rule Zero on that where we were bringing up how women could be anything a man could be, so they decided to be binge drinkers.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
And everybody's like, yeah.
Dude, honestly, I don't know. I don't know. I know very few women in their 40s and 50s who don't outdrink me, you know, pound for pound. I mean,
and it's crazy too because they have like no sense of taste. It's always the cheap vodka, it literally is White Claws. It's low calorie. I'm like, it's not the sugar that's doing it to you, lady.
Right. I haven't figured out anything about, barbiturates, metabolism, all that kind of shit, depressants.
Barbiturates. What was the main one that they used to use back in the day?
God, I don't know.
I always say Quaaludes, but everybody always laughs. I think that's like me talking about like cowboys in the Wild West.
Yeah. I mean, once you get beyond like, the popular shit like pot, speed,
you're out of your
acid.
element too.
I mean, I didn't, the only thing I ever did was smoked a little pot. So I'm very square when it comes to all that shit.
Me too. I tried, but then they made it legal and then I lost interest in it. It was my big FU to the military. Like my last couple months there, I'm like, you know what? Fuck you guys. I went up to I was in Montreal and our building was like this nice high end one, had like the infinity pool on the roof, and just went up there and I'm like, just looked at the first guy at the barbecue I saw. It's like, hey man, who's your dealer? Gives me the number. I call it. 30 minutes later, the guy shows up to my house. I sit down there and he asked what I wanted. I just gave him $50 because he has like, you want this one or this one? I just gave him 50. He's like, oh, I guess he wasn't used to people who weren't cheap. So just threw both the bags at me. He's like, all right, then fair enough.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I don't know. To be fair, it just put me to sleep. And I'm like, well, it's a lot more expensive than melatonin. And I hate patchouli.
Yeah. Well, last time I smoked pot, I was in graduate school. So that was 22, 23.
Oh, an educated man. Educated Southern gentleman.
I'm way beyond all that.
Hey, speaking of stereotype, do you do that like educated Southern gentleman thing where you speak extremely slow and you're like speeding it up for the camera because the Canadians? Or is that just like a myth?
I think it's a myth.
Oh, well, fair enough. Well, thanks for killing that. I was just going to try to get you to start talking like Mark fucking Twain.
Well, you also got to understand that I'm not a, I don't have pedigree. So, I think most of those guys who talk real slow and distinguished, they're from well-established families and, from Virginia or something. I'm just some, redneck from North Alabama. So.
Oh, I remember this line. It was from that TV show Sharp. What did the guy say? cotton, sugar cane, and molasses or something like that. I don't know if that has any meaning, but in the show it was like his little catchphrase because he was the one guy on there with the American accent. He was on one of the loyalty lists.
Okay.
Learning more about the South every day. Like I said, to me, it's when you talk about it, I just remember from movies. That's all I got. And unfortunately, I don't know if you guys know this, but the northern US and the western US, they don't have high opinions of the South.
Really?
I think they think you guys are all incestual, and I think that you all want slaves, and you guys like Trump and all kinds of horrific stuff.
We're a bunch of incestual racists who, vote for Orange Man. Yeah.
Like you only do half the buttons in your coveralls. Who does that? You can get that locked in like an engine, and it's just unsafe,
right.
man.
Well, and then we don't wear shirts under the coveralls either. So.
Oh yeah, of course not.
Oh,
although I guess that's Appalachian. Is that Appalachian's part of the South or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, North Alabama, typically if you're going to hike the Appalachian Trail, traditionally it starts in North Georgia, but geographically it actually dips all the way down into northeast Alabama. So,
jeez.
Yeah, I'm from around up there.
Learning something new every day. I hope that chat loves this because it's like just boring, like facticals about the South. But I don't know. I tell you what, guys, we'll get something interesting. I told Nick off screen. That's why I'm kind of mumbling right now because I did 3 hours talking with Rolo this week. I did 6 hours talking on the game stream. I just did 2 with Clary yesterday. 2 before there with Zertis. We were talking about Canadian conspiracies. By the way, our country is fucked. Oh my God, we do some horrific shit. I've been talking so much this week. I feel like a chick.
Join the club.
Yeah. But that's all right. I mean, no, but your show's good. Yours is more laid back and you don't have a format because you don't have any expectations.
I mean, our, for Let Them Burn, our mission statement has always been, we will intentionally bring no value whatsoever. So that makes show prep real easy.
I was going to say, that's not so different than some of the bigger guys out there. I'm just saying.
Well, we're honest about it though.
Yeah. Just throw some tits on your show and you and Rolo are basically the top 2 competitors in this space.
Big red flaming tits, right?
Yeah. Well, how does it's Fresh and Fit are like ratchet hose, and then Rolo brings like the hose minus the ratchet, and then I don't know what like a southern version of that is, like Bless Your Heart to Girls or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we could always get, I could talk to Rob and Bullrush. We could always start having some Southern belles on the show, but
yeah.
I think that would disappoint everybody when they
No. That was the funniest thing I ever heard. Rolo was telling me about his first show, and he brought the Vegas girls on there, and obviously they're Vegas girls, so they're surgically enhanced,
right?
Like $6 million woman,
right?
But he was like, yeah, and then guys just sort of in the chat constantly complaining, well, where's the mids from Ohio? I need you to have those girls on. And I'm like, oh. So it's clear. That's like, great. And then there was this study. It wasn't Pornhub, but it was one of those kind of ones where the guy was saying for guys who have porn fetishes and all the unhealthy degenerate shit, it was like they don't watch any production porn. It's all amateur.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I guess that accessibility thing is like the new thing for like the degenerates that are killing the West.
Well, if the porn chicks are anything like the Instagram thoughts that I see, that are constantly, hitting me up on Instagram because they think I'm going to be some kind of virtual sugar daddy or something, which is always hilarious. But, all the weird, all the crazy lips and everything else. I look at that stuff and I'm just like, God, if that's what porn is now, I don't blame everybody for going for the amateur shit because that's just kind of horrific. It's like everybody's wearing the same mask or something.
Like, yeah, wasn't it supposed to be you start normal with stylized, then the uncanny valley drops, and then it comes back to normal? And they were rolling back down the hill.
Right, yeah. Exactly.
That's not how any of this works, madam.
That's hilarious.
Or Carl put it's the American thing. Like, the Americans, if you see something that's good, you're like, it'd be great, 10 times as much of this.
Right. Well, that's funny because I think probably my heyday of porn watching was when I was in my 20s, and back then if she had breast implants or just, it was just, one thing like that. We were all like, oh my God, that's, we've never seen that before. But now after 30 years of seeing that shit just get more and more and more, widespread, now it's kind of like that.
Like that Russian chick with the triple Fs or whatever. I don't know. One thing I do like though is there's like a tie right now between porn stars and professional wrestlers over how many of them die young. It's more dangerous than oil rigging and a cop, all of that stuff. Seriously.
Wow. Why is porn?
I don't know. A lot of coke.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. A lot of coke, a lot of suicide, a lot of pills, the occasional murder suicide, and the occasional and rarely a car accident. But
yeah,
there hasn't been any Chris Benoit of the porn yet that I know of.
It's coming.
So porn is ahead slightly right now by one.
just barely,
Yeah, they need that, and then they need one of them during a porn shoot to fall and land on a turnbuckle and kill themselves.
And then they'll take the lead, right?
For you Americans in the chat, that's an Owen Hart joke. That's a Canada thing.
Well, I thought all porn girls and strippers were just college girls, working their way through school. So.
Oh yeah, medical school.
I was telling, I don't remember who I was talking to. We were doing something a while back, last week, maybe early this week. When you get this old, it's hard to remember. But I was telling this story about this student I had when I was when in my early 20s. I was an English teacher at a couple of different colleges here, and I did have a student who, it turned out, she was actually stripping at the local strip joint that was up the road from the college, and and she dropped out. So much for the working your way through school.
I was like dropping out of the club or dropping out of the school.
No, she dropped out of college.
Oh, I guess you should have been a better teacher then.
Yeah. Well, actually, it was the following semester that she did, because I was telling my buddy who, she had been in my class for 101 and then he was teaching 102. I was telling him, I was like, yeah, she's a stripper up at the place, and he, and he was very interested in that. And then, like, within the first 2 weeks of that semester, she dropped out, and turned out she had just,
sucks so much.
Quit school altogether. Well, she, there's probably a rich doctor who was taking care of her at that point. So
this is going to be a weird reference. I know Marty loves my 80s references. Do you remember the movie Summer School?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I just, for some reason, I thought about you sitting there feeding your dog peanut butter, going to the strip club and seeing one of your students there. Dude, don't tell my mom, okay?
That's great.
It's like, just finish your work.
That was a great movie. That was a great, that was a great 80s flick.
Dude, I loved the classic 80s because they always had like the tropes, like, the one like punk that was kind of crazy, but it was almost manufactured.
Right.
Like Ski School is my favorite one because the guy had two masks on the side of his head and he'd always turn his head and do the other voice. But
well, yeah, and again, everything in the 80s until you maybe get to like after, 80, late 80s, 88, 89, art, music, everything else, it was about, having a good time and not taking things too seriously for the most part, not trying to develop any meaningful statement about life, in a movie. It was, hey, let's again, big red flaming tits and get their money.
I was wondered about that. Like, I get that was like who made that? Was that the silent generation that was adults around then, or was that the boomers at the time? Because you would have been a kid-ish, like young adults. So you were kind of like what they were aiming at, right?
Yeah, I started the 80s in middle school and ended in, I graduated college in 89. So
yeah, so this would have been your generation's, like, this is what made us, which awesome, by the way. I wish I was Gen X because you guys had it so good. But I'm just trying to figure out, like, what is it about that they lost in the 90s? Why did we give up on Miller Lite?
Yeah, I don't know. I think the consequences of the consequences of the 70s were realized in the 80s, which made everybody in the 90s say, oh, just fuck everything. We're going to, wear flannel and be depressed. So
are you talking about how the bra burning in the 70s caused 80s tits?
That's part of it.
If you guys in the chat don't know what I'm talking about, just go make yourself some scrambled eggs and think real hard and ponder on the tree of woe.
You got to remember that in the 80s, a lot of us were latchkey kids, right? Because, everybody was divorced. And so everybody was working all the time.
Yeah.
And so we pretty much,
raised ourselves.
Yeah. And my situation was just stereotypically that. My parents divorced when I was around 11 or 12, just at that, just on the cusp of manhood there. So,
Oh man, you missed your rite of passage. Well, here, I'm gonna send you a care package. We'll get right on that.
I had some fucking rites of passage, let me tell you.
Dude, I love that. I mean, I don't love it. I actually hate it, but I love that I hate it. That rite of passage thing where guys are so insecure about their, and I know we weren't supposed to talk about Manosphere, but I'll
No,
leave
it's
it
cool.
here. Guys were talking about like, I need to become a man, and they had to go so far back into the past to find something that resonated that they hit like the Paleolithic, Neolithic kind of demarcation line. Cavemen, that's the one. If
you didn't kill a deer with a spear under the tutelage of your tribal elders and get bathed in its blood after you were done, then you never had a rite of passage. Which I make fun of that all the time because I grew up hunting and my kids especially did. And
so your 6-year-old's a bigger man than fucking Roman McClay.
Probably. Well, I mean, mine's still alive, so, and he hasn't killed anybody yet that I know of. Yeah. So, there's that. But it's the rite of passage thing was always, it wasn't about anything. It wasn't even about ceremony. It was about when can you take care of yourself and contribute to the tribe, whatever. Yeah. So utility. At this point, right. So at this point, it's if you hold down a job and pay your own car insurance, that's a rite of passage. But that's the price you pay for not living in a cave with a loincloth, and you get to have health insurance. So I mean, it's
so you're
good trade-off.
I can't live like a caveman but have Twitter.
That's right.
This is bullshit. I want my rite of passage to accommodate me. God, when did we turn into chicks? Like not us, not you and me. Like you're all that is man, but like when did we,
of course,
as online brand personalities, turn into fucking women?
I think the moment we all sign on to social media, we're signing on to a feminine interactive space.
I blame it's that iPhone, isn't it? Once normies were able to get onto BBS sites.
Well, it started out with mobile phones, and then now we've got 5G, so that's screwing us all up. So we're all doomed. It's like you said in that slide, the end is nigh.
Yeah, dude, I had to look that up because I'm like, I know the term, but I had no idea what it's from. It's just one of those ones you kind of pick up. I still can't find it. The oldest reference I found was like a 2005 comic. And I'm like, there's no way this is some 2005.
No.
I was not paying attention to shit like that back then.
No, I thought
there had to be like a 1930s Fitzgerald's Great American Novel talking about it. But
I don't know if it's from anything like that. I'm sure that there were, homeless guys on street corners holding up signs that had that.
Oh, yeah, that was the one, the sandwich board guys. About was at the end of the world. Did any of the, I guess nobody ever got it right, did they? So one thing that makes me feel good, all these people talking about like the West is dead and everything's going to hell and we're all going to die. I'm like, they haven't been right yet. So that's the one thing I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm pretty hopeful.
Well, I mean, there's not a West anymore because the world is, almost completely populated. So that doesn't really make, and it's so fluid, it doesn't even make any sense to talk about a West anymore. So when people start talking about saving the West, they're just talking about, preserving an idea in their own head. That's all it is, So.
Yeah, there's actually this pretty good guy on YouTube I watch. He's like what if alt history?
Mm-hmm.
And he's one of those autists that just for some reason he skipped the Roman Empire and he skipped World War II, and he's like, look at this history. But it's great because when he tries to talk about all these concepts, he kind of acknowledges how nebulous and ego-filled whatever you call the West is.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, does India count as the West? Does Mexico count? And then he brings up all this stuff and you realize, oh, wow, I always knew it was bullshit, but he like articulated it very well.
Right.
And I miss when autism was smart. Artism.
Well,
soft R.
it was better when there were fewer of them.
Yeah.
It's like everything else, once the little rascals, once the He-Man Woman Haters Club gets too big, it's just like,
typical America. Hey, autism is great. You know what we need? All of it.
More.
How much?
More.
Yeah, more. Dear God, no. Yes. Anime waifus everywhere. All right. I'm going to switch here. Oh, you know what? Fuck it. I'm having some fun. This is totally like a throwaway episode. Like I'm not trying to algorithm anything. And so let's put some shit posting.
Boom. What's up, fam? Got some big news to share that unfortunately is not so good. So I'm gonna jump right into it. You're gonna watch this video and you're gonna cry. At least we can laugh at your eyes as you cry, like in the corner, like a little girl in the fetal position.
I've been showing that for a straight year, and Rolo still laughs.
I do
every
too. I love that. That's great.
And I got to figure out the Tate one. I got to redo that one to have like some ISIS references in the back. Did you hear, by the way, he's full grown Islamic now, and his brother's Orthodox Christian, and
I've heard.
they're doing the full trad thing, like he's parading their kids around for social media clout and everything.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Cheers to that.
So I always laugh. I'm running victory laps, man. Hey, where's your God now, alpha males? Oh, he's starting up a foundation to protect women against violence, which,
Yeah.
to be fair, I kind of get that because it was always the most crass and politically incorrect guy on the ship that they made the harassment advisor.
Mhm.
So making him the battered women's like champion, I understand.
That's why I try to be a little bit harder on all the, so-called red pill women because, I mean,
Dude.
Tate's gone. Somebody's got to do it. I don't have anything, I don't have any real footprint online. So you can't really cancel me.
Honestly, what was that line? The great thing about red pill women in this space is the cat fights are better. I don't think you guys understand the depth that I don't know. Maybe you didn't mean it that way, but I took it as like, A, guys with your stupid cat fighting need to step up your game. B, I love when chicks fight, hope they kiss at the end.
Right.
And C, the exact girls you're talking about have such like a good thick skin and sense of humor about it. They kind of went with the joke, which is exactly what you kind of tell men to do when somebody's shitting on you online.
Right.
Go with the joke so you don't turn into a babbling fucking mess. It's just layers, man. It's like an onion.
Right. Well, I do appreciate the fact that a lot of those chicks have, whether they actually, just let it roll off them and they don't care, they just know that, I mean, it's kayfabe, right? They know they have a role to play, but they do it.
So Jimmy Jones asked what's in our coffee. For me, I've got Irished up Starbucks roast.
I've got some kind of coffee with bourbon in it.
Oh, that's nice.
I think it's Seattle's best, but
Seattle's best bourbon?
Seattle's best coffee.
Oh.
Yeah, Seattle's best bourbon. I get it for $2 a jug.
That's yeah. You guys remember the cartoons with the 3 X's? That's the Seattle's best.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna switch this one. I gotta ask. I actually can't believe nobody asked you because like you have a few live streams and everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. And you're talking about, hey, my job was to roll in like Benji or the littlest hobo into startups, solve their problems, and catch the next train out of Hobo Town.
Yeah.
You've talked about it a bunch. Not a single person I've seen who's talking about, hustling for side income or whatever has bothered coming to you to learn anything.
There have been a few people that you and I both know that are in the Discord and stuff who've hit me up, through my DMs and have, either paid for some consulting or, just shot the shit with me a little bit about stuff like that. But, it's not something I push a lot. It's not something I promote, but I've got, a fair amount of experience there. And I used to do live streams where I talked about it more. These days, I'd rather get online with Rob, drink, and, just talk shit. But
when you put it that way,
if I ever decide to, if I ever decide I need to make more of a living online, I'll probably, do like some kind of series about that, especially for, yes, smart people have. And I'd probably do like a series on that, mainly aimed at tech guys, but also just aimed at your average, spurg who needs to learn how to get along in business. Because what my main gig, it started out, I started out as a software engineer and just got into technology leadership. And then as time went on, I was pretty good with both strategy as well as vetting people in business. And so that was a couple of my skill sets I ended up leveraging. So.
All right. Well, I want to leverage it now. I want to find out. Okay, Elon, he on Twitter, 44 billion. He's tweeting like his business decisions on there. I am curious about your take because all I know is that he's clearly soapboxing to the crowd. Everybody loves seeing Twitter guys getting fired, and he's kind of playing up that. I get it, but his lawyers are also like, dude, you got advertisers, man. You better make them happy,
right?
But it seems kind of to me, I don't know. Everybody's saying it's 5D chess, but to me, it looks like a guy who's very impulsive, who has somebody whispering in his ear when he goes too far. So I don't know. What's your take on this? Like, is it a good idea to fire that much staff, to bring in his Tesla guys to basically run things? From a security standpoint, I would say shutting down the moderation stuff the day he moved in was probably good for sabotage reasons. But beyond that, I'm kind of clueless.
I mean, I think that every time you have a big regime change, you've got a bunch of people are going to get fired. And every company goes through, it's like, it's like the process of the caterpillar becoming the butterfly or whatever, the snake constantly shedding its skin. Every company, every business does that. And the frequency, depends on growth and a lot of other things. But I think that I think first of all, he probably is just being that flippant about it, because on the surface, again, you always talk about kayfabe. I think a lot of it is that, because, on the surface of it, nobody takes Twitter seriously, but then at the same time, a whole lot of people take it very seriously. Right. So it's like, he's got to play to, and there's a huge audience on Twitter. The vast majority of Twitter users are not blue check marks, and they're not monetizing anything. They're just there driving the growth itself. So he's got to play to that, and then it's become so politicized. So he's got to play to all that. I think the best way to do it is what he's doing is he's just, he's going to be a caricature of himself, and, throw himself in with all the other caricatures that is what Twitter is. Right.
Fair enough. In 2 weeks from now, if he joins the Muslim faith, I'm going to laugh. I don't know. I think that's the new. I think I should become. I'm gonna find my kefya and efyal, and I'm put those on. And Mish is gonna baptize. How do they baptize you? Do they throw sand at you instead of the water?
I don't know what they do, but I think they make you blow yourself up or something. But I think
soon.
Islam is so yesterday. We got to find a new. Since Tate did the Islam thing, that's pretty much played out. We need to find. Like some obscure Indian sect or Zoroastrianism or something.
Well, that's all that's left. Rollo called dibs on the golden people.
The golden people.
Yeah, the Hebrews. He's like, oh, I got this, and I'm like, son of a bitch.
I mean, but Madonna did that in the 90s, right?
So and all that's left is Zoroastrian and Scientology, and I'm like,
yeah.
Scientology, you have to pay your way to get high, because I've seen like the top end Tom Cruise, they like give you your wife and they fed her for you, and on the lower ones they like lock you into rooms and let cockroaches eat you. So I'm like, I don't know if I can pay to play in that religion.
Well, that's pretty much. I mean, how's that different from what the Power Dad patriarchs do? It's basically the same lifestyle, right?
Oh, it's what's the parable about the guy who was going to kill his kid, then God said no at the last minute?
Oh yeah.
Why am I drawing a blank?
Abraham and Isaac.
It's like that, but instead of the knife, he's got a camera. There, Rollo's got his prodigal son making fun of Ruth shit. I got my fucking the murder of Isaac's kid thing with this fucking social media camera.
Nice.
Rant about pedophiles all day on your platform, and then show pictures of your kids chopping wood shirtless. Self-awareness, fucking gone.
Negative. Yeah, that was my favorite thing. My favorite thing was beware pedophiles. Oh, but hey, look at my kid.
Yeah,
and I just that was crazy. And then the response was always, well, we're not going to let pedophiles dictate what we can do on Twitter. And I was like, yeah, tell that to your kid when he's walking home from school and some creep in a old Volkswagen is shagging him. So.
Is there? I honestly, I want to think there's a parallel between that and those chicks are like, I should be able to walk down the alleyways at 3 a.m, drunk out of my mind, and be safe.
Right.
And then you're sitting here as Jordan Peterson. Did you ever think about maybe taking your safety into your own hands? Or like, you're a misogynist. It's like, just get raped. That's what you want. I give up. Or grape. Sorry, I can't say the R word. It kills the algorithm.
That's pretty harsh.
Yeah, fuck it. Why not be harsh though, dude? Well, there is like this weird self-delusion. Everybody's got it now where it's like life is too safe and too easy. And I know it's, back in the day, if you fucked something up, then a tiger ate your family. So you just didn't fuck things up. And now we don't. What's going to happen? You can't starve to death in the States. When was the last guy starved to death in the US? Mississippi. Isn't that like the poorest state in the union?
if you starve to death in the United States, it's because somebody chained you to a radiator and didn't feed you. That's pretty much the only way. And that does happen too. So
I was gonna say,
know.
even then, didn't they do that to that chick for 20 years and she still looked pretty healthy? I mean, mentally,
Oh
like
yeah,
not psychologically, she was pretty brutal that way.
you're talking
Yeah,
about
the
the one
guy
from
knocked her up
Cleveland,
like 5 times, had 7
yeah,
kids, kept her chained to a radiator.
right. Well, I mean, he had to feed her for the kids, right? You know, had to keep the.
Go give mom her fish heads, kids.
Oh my God, that's I could go down that rabbit hole for an hour.
That'll
But
be fun.
we one thing I started doing on Let 'Em Burn is we started awarding this harshness of the week award.
Dude, I love
Uh,
those. I really do.
and because I would just run across all these great all this great stuff on because you won once too, all this great stuff on Twitter and you can retweet it, but what's that? So I figured that a major entertainment juggernaut like Let 'Em Burn needed to jump into the fray and start start offering something to all these people who were doing the Lord's work. So that's what we started doing.
Yeah, well, that's why I like yours, because most of the time when people have like shit post awards, it's always like very on the surface, crass. Yours, you have to like take a minute. You're like, oh yeah, I get it now. Like there's always a subtext to it, and I always like that.
Well, I mean, that's the crazy thing about Twitter is that, as big of a pile of shit as it is, there's some peanuts and corn in there too. So you gotta, if you can get in there and start picking out, the value, that you're usually finding something pretty good.
I guess we got to fire 75% of Twitter users to get the good stuff.
Right.
Oh, hey, that was something I wanted to ask. I totally forgot. So you know how he was like, Elon, the only question he asked all their engineers was like, how much code do you program a week or a month or something to that effect?
Mm.
And then there was a bunch of blue checks bitching about it, how, well, that's not the best metric for success for a coder on how much he codes, which I'm kind of thinking bullshit on that, because like between documentation and project management, and like to me, that seems like the meetings for the sake of meetings attitude.
Yeah.
Like, is this bloat? Is 75% of the people there being superfluous to the running of the platform? Does that seem like a reasonable proposition to you? Or do you think there's going to be some real code dilemmas?
I don't know about percentages, but there's, except for the day after they fire everybody, there's always bloat in a company, first of all. So there's that. Second of all, my startup experience was typically with very small outfits that never got larger than maybe 50 employees,
Right.
maybe 75, not including strategic partnerships and things like that. So when I talk about the the startup world and the corporate world, I'm coming at it from really a kind of a the smaller side niche. I never worked for a Twitter. I was chief technology officer for a lot of companies, but they weren't. I wouldn't know what to do as a CTO for like IBM.
Right.
I would go in there and I would just assume that well, I'm just gonna put my feet up on my desk and drink coffee and act like I know what I'm doing. And
wasn't that job at that point the sacrificial lamb? When a hack happens, you're there so the CEO doesn't get shit on.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's part of the gig, and so, so for most of my experiences, the technology team was always the redheaded stepchild of the organization. So you would think that we would get most of the money and most of the staffing, but the truth is that most of that went to sales. A lot of it went to marketing. A lot of it went to, depending on the kind of company, to like the operational staff. And then with tech, it was always we'll give you as little as necessary to get the job done, which is actually a good thing because that keeps your team fairly lean, and it forces you to make real decisions, and it forces the rest of the company to make real decisions about what features to implement. Because if you've only got a 4 or 5 man software team and you've got a lot of throughput, or you're doing a lot of business online, or whatever the business model is, then it forces everybody to be choosy, and you can't afford to waste time on both features that are irrelevant, and then also on the time to roll back all the bullshit that you did that didn't move the needle. So so that, to me, that's what really has to go on, because I would imagine in some place like Twitter, and I'm just guessing, but as huge as their staff must be, it's kind of like, the kid's Christmas list for Santa sitting on Santa's lap. He's like, okay, I want this, and I want a block button, and I want, a like button, and I want a dislike button, and I want, all this other stuff. And somebody has to be there to say, yeah, but what really moves the needle, and what do people really use? And that's an expensive proposition. And the bigger the company is, the more that scales up, the more that increases exponentially, to the point where you can be wasting a hell of a lot of time and money on stuff that is just what some marketing guy said, or some marketing chick said she liked to see. So,
That sucks. I always had the image in my head, like Google, where they had like a research team that actually analyzed and answered in a quantitative study. Like, by putting the like button here, it makes it 7% more engaging. But I don't know, maybe that's my naivety in the space.
Well, I mean, even in the companies that I worked for, they were small companies, but a couple of them had fairly large footprints as far as the our market share in whatever vertical it was in, market research or something like that. So so A/B testing, was a thing pioneered by Amazon, I think, or most popularized by Amazon. But A/B testing was always a thing, and so we always had something like that going, and we were always, the tech team was always measuring. And I actually used to do things like, because there was a lot of overlap between my time as a lead developer and a tech exec. Sometimes I was both at the same time, as we transitioned from a smaller staff to a larger staff, because I almost always started out as the first developer, or the whatever. And so what I would do is I would make these changes that everybody was talking about were so necessary, and I wouldn't tell anybody. And they would be in there for a month, and then the next time we'd get together and have this meeting, and everybody's like, well, people want X, and people want Y, and people want Z. And I'd be like, well, I put that in there a month ago, and I've just been having it dumped to a database every time somebody used it, and it turns out that nobody's using it. Well, that's because we haven't taught people how to use it. And I was like, the whole point of intuitive interface design is you shouldn't have to teach people about it. If it's there and they want to use it, they will use it. They will discover it. And it's not like I hid it anywhere. So, I used to do stuff like that, which is one of the reasons why, I retired.
Must make you popular among the sales teams.
Oh my God. Well, I mean, it was like everybody else. They wanted to drink with me, but when I sat down and started dealing out the harshness, it was like, well, now you can shut up. Come see us at 5 o'clock when it's time to go to the bar.
Fair. All right, Jimmy, another $2 super chat here. Does your programming language matter in the end? I've heard it doesn't, because you can always learn a new one once you understand like the theory behind it. But
yeah,
again, I learned with Think Pascal. Like, that's my expertise, and it kind of closes off there. I don't know any of the shit with C.
Well, my arc was when I started getting back, because I was big into computers and mainly programming when I was a teenager, and I got out of that obviously for a while, and then I started getting back into it in the mid '90s when the graphical web started taking off like it did. And that's how you can tell an old fuck, because we still talk about graphical web, because nobody refers to it that way anymore. But there was a time where it wasn't graphical web; it was just internet, and everybody connected through terminals and shit. But anyway, so I ended up getting it. I was a PHP MySQL guy for a long time, because that was one of the more popular web-based database driven application things. SQL's, well, it's a very old standard, and that was heavily in use in the early 2000s when I got back into things. And I ended up around 2004, that Danish dude created Ruby on Rails. Ruby was already around, but Rails was a MVC framework for fast deployment online on web. And so I got into that, and I used that pretty much exclusively until I gave the whole thing up. And now there are even so many more scripting languages and fast deployment frameworks and stuff that as long as you've learned like on something at least, C or later, and you're familiar with design patterns, MVC frameworks, all the usual stuff. It's pretty language agnostic. You can usually pick up another language pretty quick if you're good with at least one. So
That's good to know. There you go, Jimmy. It's always hopeful.
Long-winded answer for your $2, but I always try to bring value. So
yeah, well, we got to pad this 2 hours. We're not talking about drama and hoes and 304s and you know what? I hate that. I'm gonna rant. I'm going Clary on this one. I hate how everybody's called dorks and it's 304s because everybody wants to be badass and get the badass credit, but the algorithm doesn't want me cussing. So I have to be badass, like PG badass. And it's got that amusement park vibe to it. Even Tate, I'm the baddest man in the world, you dorks. These 304s, dorks. I'm like, just say cunt. You'll like it. It's fun. It feels free. Yeah, but the algorithm. Well, I guess you're very badass.
One of the nice things about not being monetized and not trying to make a living off of this stuff is that Rob and Bull Rush and I can just say whatever we want to, and we're small enough that nobody cares. So the algorithm doesn't. We're just some dried up dog shit on the street. The algorithm, I don't think even notices us.
I've A/B tested it. I've had videos where I don't cuss, and I've had videos where I do cuss. The difference in like the CPM, the cost per mil, like the 1,000 view dollar amount, doesn't really change. In fairness, though, from what I've been seeing, a lot of the guys who are like, when they see ads on my channel, it's usually the same grifters that I'm shitting on Twitter. Like that stupid idiot. I don't know if you remember him. It was like a year ago, that idiot with the surfboard bragging about semen retention or whatever. Rollo and I did like this episode just calling him a complete moron. And then his ads were popping up in the video. But from what I understand, those guys pay like a pretty penny to get on there because they need to, I don't know why they need to pay extra, but they do.
Well, it's the perfect, snake eating its tail, because, the more you call out the stupidity, the more you're advertising for the stupidity.
Well, yeah, they don't notice like what I'm talking about. They're like, oh, that's MGTOW stuff. Go get in there. I hate to say it, Michael Moore was right. The problem with the capitalists is they'll sell you the rope to hang themselves with.
Yeah.
So one time I actually agreed with Mr. Moore.
Well, I mean,
you're like,
capital. Oh no, yeah. I mean, he's not right. Capitalism is a shitty system, except for all the others.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not gonna go full. I was trained to kill commies. That's never going away.
Hey, look, I'm the guy that I got in trouble, 6 months ago for saying that most Democrats were nice people. So
what?
I feel you.
The hell kind of shitpost is that? You know what? I'm gonna do the
that's the
thing,
ultimate
grow my heart,
post.
And everybody punished you for it. How dare you act like a decent, amicable human being?
That's the ultimate shit post. Well, because I just think it's funny because I'm obviously not a Democrat. And I'm very whatever I am, but and everybody that I'm friends with on online seems to all be a whole lot more like me in terms of all that. But in real life, a lot of my friends are Democrats, and they've been my friends for years, and I just think it's funny when everything on social media and on Twitter is like that scene from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood when Leonardo DiCaprio is playing that American soldier and he's got that flamethrower and he's roasting all those Nazis. He's standing on a balcony roasting all those Nazis, and that's how everybody sees themselves online. Everybody's, we're going to save the West. I'm the guy with the flamethrower. I'm never the Nazi. I'm always the guy with the flamethrower.
Dude, I gotta ask. Sorry. Finish your story, then I'll ask.
Oh, and it was just that I just, as much as I like to hate on the Democrats too, and I do it all the time. It's also a matter of touching grass. And I'm like, hey, I got a lot of good friends who are Democrats, and they don't really give a shit about any of this. They're just living their lives and loving their kids and take care of business like the rest of us are. So,
well, that's what I was wondering. If you guys are kind of like we are in Canada. So in Canada, like, yeah, there's a couple of guys. They're usually government workers, so their paycheck is like endorsed by the Liberal Party of Canada. So they're kind of crazy about it, which I understand. But most of us don't do that. We don't vote for people. We vote against people. Like every election, we call them ABLs and ABCs, anything but conservative and anything but liberal. And then everybody will actually strategically vote. That's how the NDP, our socialist party, gets so many votes. It was like 2012 or something like that. They called it the Orange Wave, where they won like enough seats to become the opposition party, which is like unheard of. But it was just because everybody really hated Harper, and the guy they put in charge of the Liberal Party, he wasn't even Canadian. He like lived, like he had citizenship, but he's like 50 years old. He spent 47 years in London, and he flew down here to go take the prime ministership. And everybody's like, hey, that dual citizenship, you thinking about canning that when you run the country?
That's hilarious.
Oh, and that was the best part is he was like, yeah, if I win, I'll probably denounce it. It's like, no.
That's
you want
funny.
some investment, you got to earn it, you son of a bitch.
That's awesome. That's even better than what we do.
Yeah, at least you guys are like, you weren't born here. Fuck out of here.
Well, you know, I mean, the whole Trump thing, you know, I voted for him. I voted for him both times, and I would vote for him again. It's not because I think he's the greatest president.
Option, or?
Well, I mean, I really liked a lot of what he did, and I think that, you know, a lot of his America First stuff, even though it rubs the rest of the world the wrong way, we kind of like rubbing the rest of the world the wrong way. So I mean, he knew his audience, but you know, for me, it was almost performance art. You know, it was just, I got to buy a ticket to this. I want to, you know, I'm going to invest in this because I want to see what happens. And,
like
you know,
Twitter, this isn't real.
Right. I mean, it's the same thing as Elon on Twitter, really, if you think about it. And, you know, and at this point, you know, I don't mind saying that I may just give up voting now altogether, because I mean, the whole thing is just such a farce. It just doesn't even matter. And, you know, that's the bitter old man in me talking, the bitter old grandpa.
I just treat it as punishment. I have to. Like, they literally in the ground floor of my building, they set up a polling station. So I just have to get off the elevator to get in there. So I don't even have an excuse of laziness.
Right.
But for me, it's just punishment. Like after the COVID thing, any chance I've had to vote for anybody, I don't even care about the policies. I'm like, you know, he needs to suffer.
Well,
except for Ford, our premier, dude. How bad is this? Our premier was one of the worst in the world for like lockdown stuff. And then the 3 people that tried to run against him were all worse. Imagine being worse than the guy who like locked your province down like China.
Right.
And everybody's mad at Ford. I'm like, don't be mad at him. Be mad at these 3 assholes. They couldn't get a better platform than don't leave your house or I'll kill you.
Well, I mean, and that's a good point, because I still vote in the local elections, but the way things work here, Alabama is right now anyway. Alabama is going to you know, cast their vote for the guy that I would be voting for anyway. So, you know, whether I vote or not, you know, doesn't really matter. And before all you Spurgs out there start talking about how, well, you know, you should always act as though, you know, your actions make a difference. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Screw that.
No, that's here. It's here. Voting is almost useless for me. The Liberal Party wins in my riding with like twice as many votes as all the other parties combined. So my vote literally doesn't count. Other than I get to talk about voting for somebody else in the lineup to the polling station and watch people like pretend they ignore me and then seethe about it and bitch about it to their little girlfriend.
All right. I mean, that's the point. It's all performance art at this point. It's all a gag, you know, so it doesn't, you know, the rest of it doesn't matter. And, you know, when everybody's ready to, you know, pull out the torches and pitchforks, I'll be right there with you. I've got my pitchfork ready. But until we go that route, you know, and just vote blanket, no, fuck off on everything. Yeah.
They're not going to know who in their right mind would put that up for a vote, though. Everybody can fuck off. In Canada, the only person that gets to say that is like the Queen or the King.
Yeah.
That's literally the only power the monarchy has in Canada. If things get really bad, they're like, all right, start again. Just flip the board. Call of election.
Well, you know, and it's funny, everybody who's ready for the next revolution. And, you know, I feel you. I feel the same way. But, you know, it's kind of like with software, you know, I've worked on projects where that software platform has been there for 20 years and it's loaded with, you know, patches and bug fixes and everything else. And that's the reason why at least it stays up and it runs. And as soon as you invariably, as soon as you decide to scrap it and build something new, you're gonna, you know, as soon as you launch that new platform, you're gonna spend, you know, 3 years doing nothing but bug fixes and patches for shit that, you know, the previous platform had already solved. So I mean, it's the same kind of deal until it becomes so bad that the platform's not even running anymore. You're not going to scrap it.
Oh, fair enough. Actually, that makes sense, because in the military we were still using tape drives. like with the punch
Exactly.
tapes.
Yeah. I mean,
Pretty good with
everybody
that too.
everybody wants to shit on the old dude who's who's stuck in the past and everything else, but when you've got national security or millions of dollars on the line, it doesn't, you got to balance the risk versus the reward. Sometimes you have to go ahead and do it, and I've certainly done that. But you
If you
got
don't
to be
have to,
realistic.
why?
You have to be realistic about the headaches, and you don't really, I scrapped one platform for another simply because our business model had changed so much, and our daily operations had changed so much that the previous platform just wasn't designed to accommodate it. So at some point it does make sense, but you don't do it until you absolutely have to.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense for everything.
Right.
Marriage. I still love that guy, that Steve McQueen guy who told us, we got it, boys. 6 weeks. 6 weeks in, I'm an alpha male, ditched his wife. She's the bitch. I'm not the problem. We're like, all right, because you had like a pretty good sparring partner, and heaven forbid you might have got attractive and she'd stop being a cunt to you. And what happened later? 2 more months. He's like, I found a new girl and she's better than my ex-wife in every way. We're like, all right. And 2 months later after that, he's like, it's weird. She's starting to act like my ex-wife again. Like, by the time all that had done, he'd wasted like 2 years of his life basically finding out that he had some shit to work on. We're like, that was a fucking expensive lesson, but you do you.
Yeah.
Then he gets mad at us, like it's your guys' fault. You let me do this. Got you like 50 years old, man. Why are you doing this? How stupid were you? How can you survive? He actually earned money. How do you make money when you're that stupid?
That is why we brew butthurt Hefeweizen for the world, because everybody, a case of butthurt always makes everything better. So
I don't know. I love it. I like it and I don't like it. I like it in the away from the military. I remember this where you see like a bunch of idiots are like, dude, how did you walk to work today without falling on your tongue? And then you realize, okay, he is earning $80,000 a year. I'll be fine.
That's right.
Where yeah, guys on Twitter dropping N-bombs like 5, 6 a day. And I'm like, he's still here, so I'm fine. That's why I like having shit bags. Like I'll shit on them because it's fun. But I like having them around to let me know where the floor is.
Yeah. I mean,
is that optimism or is that pessimism? I don't even know.
Pragmatism, maybe.
Pragmatism.
It depends on who you ask. That's the funny thing about optimism, pessimism, pragmatism. It doesn't really tell you about the life situation. It just tells you about that individual who uses that particular word. So if you're more pragmatic than somebody else, or if you're more harsh than somebody else, then you're a pessimist.
Yeah, whatever. All right, enough politics then. Screw that. Let me add here. Let's do another shit post. Where is she? Oh, no way. Yeah, we're using him.
I love the way girls smell. I love how they always make sure, by and large, they shower, and they just have an amazing smell to them in general.
That guy is the gift that keeps on giving. I hope he doesn't have to go to jail. I hope he gets off with his charges on the January 6th. I hope he comes back and starts talking about the Illuminati. I can't wait to hear his story about how his wife left him because he fucked up their absconsion to Poland because he wanted some extra clout on his Periscope channel. I love the one time he worked out and filmed it so that we could be like, look, guys, I'm strong.
I still don't believe that guy is real. I think he's CGI.
He's a glowy
or
an AI.
I can't believe that was the in high, despite my nerdiness, I was a jock in high school, so that just sounds that he's just the epitome of the guy that we used to make fun of all the time.
My favorite part was when he got caught, though. It wasn't because like the cops caught him. It's because one of his high school friends saw him and is like, oh, fuck that guy. Calls the feds.
Well,
imagine that high school reunion. I haven't seen you in 20 years. And you're still like, you know what? No,
fuck that guy. I thought that, that is the epitome of the age in which we live, right? It's not only your past is recorded for posterity, but everybody sees your present too, if you're dumb enough to show it to them. I mean, a lot of the guys that I have listened to on YouTube are, right-wing kind of prepper guys, military, ex-military, smart, like Terrence Popp, Matt Bracken. Matt Bracken was a SEAL in the 70s or 80s.
Mhm.
Pop was what he was. And, when those guys, would talk about, going to events and stuff, and they're like, yeah, I'm not getting in the middle of that shit. That's crazy. But then you have this pencil neck geek who talks about, how good women smell. And he wants to, like you said, he wants to leverage clout. So he gets on there and he's like, hey, look at me. And the feds are like, yep, we see you.
Yeah. I think they took the entirely wrong message from the revolution will be televised. I don't think people understood it's not like an NBC must-see TV advertisement. I may not be the most media savvy, but I didn't take that from it anyway.
No, that whole thing was just, I mean, I'm just astonished that somebody is even dumb enough to do that. And that just shows you the quality of the gurus on, online.
You know what? It's not even that gets me. It's that there's people that today still get mad at me for making fun of him. That's my guy. It's like, really? You have all the dad 2.0s in the world right now. For choice, you're just like blasted with it. You could have Jordan Peterson. You can have Muhammad Tate. You can have Rollo Tomasi. You can have that Ali Femme Sapien. You can have
Is he gonna have to change his name to Shlomo Tomasi or something if he goes?
Oh yeah,
Jewish?
Shlomo Tomasi. You can have Torsha as your dad. All these dads are just everywhere. And what does he go? That guy. That's the one that I want to do. He's a good sommelier. Which I had to find some of the footage I used to make fun of him for I actually have a Pat Stedman documentary on my channel. One of my favorites. Because I have like the ominous Netflix music with it. So it's like the Dahmer documentary.
Oh, nice.
And I had to watch like one of his like wine smelling videos. He's not very good at it. Like he's good at sounding pretentious with wine, but he's not somebody I would call a sommelier. I'm probably not even pronouncing it right, which is fine. Like he says the word tannin because he read it in a book. It's like those guys that keep talking to me about hypergamy because Rollo mentioned it once on a stream
right.
Oh wait, what's the new one? The holding chicks accountable. Do you realize 2 years ago nobody gave a shit about holding women accountable until some asshole online told them to, and now it's like a worldview? Can you imagine that? I mean, you can because you were around for Beanie Babies. You remember back when Beanie Babies was like the worldview.
That's the problem with getting old because you live through at least 2 or 3 end of the world crises, right? For me it was, we came out of the 70s looking for an ice age, and then that shifted to global warming, and then and then we had Y2K. Yeah, well, that's a good point. We had that. We had Y2K, which was a nothing burger. We had
creation of the Rust Belt.
We had 9/11, which was something. But you just lived long enough through all this stuff, and you see all these cycles repeat. All the the grifters used to be in the back of magazines and everywhere else, and now it's just easier to reach an audience. But you live long enough, you just see all this stuff, and you're like, I first got introduced to red pill content in 2016.
I am so sorry, by the way. I owe you an apology.
Well, I mean, for me, it was a good thing because I won't go into that whole long story, but I can remember, that's just 6 years ago. And I can remember it was just, a bunch of guys, like you are always talking about, positive male identity, male sexual strategy. Right.
Yeah.
And that's all it was really about back then. And it was kind of nice. And
all
then
it needed to be about.
And then but then, it created this whole economic,
Imagine
market,
that.
It created this whole market. And so now everybody has to differentiate themselves. And then people, the fastest way to get attention is to,
be over the top.
Red flaming tit. So you either have to be over the top or you got to shit on somebody,
the funniest part of that too is like the harshness in any of the red pill stuff was actually a purposeful thing. Because a lot of guys noticed, like with the men's rights guys and the MGTOWs, is that and the seduction guys, like the pickup guys, is that there'd always be some women who would come in there and they would try to tone police the place. And then whoever was thirsty would accommodate them for doing it. And then the whole place would basically turn into like Oprah's book club.
Right.
So some of the red pill guys are like, you know what we need to do? We need to make this place so unpalatable to women, we don't even have to deal with that. And that's the whole reason the misogyny is as bad as it is. It's not because anybody hates women. It's because you just need them out. And you
Right.
can't say no girls allowed because that's illegal.
Right. Right.
And then guys took that and made it an identity.
Well, I mean, the whole reason, the whole reason we used to, drag each other and fart and tell sexist jokes was because the chicks would leave you alone.
Yeah.
So it was a natural thing, and it just like everything else on the line, it just got out of hand.
Well, yeah, they're wearing it as a skin suit. I don't hate women. Like, what's that one? I'm not a doctor, but I play one on TV, but for hating women.
Yeah.
And then you got the other side of things where guys have to become, oh, you're going to be Ric Flair? Well, I'll be Hulk Hogan. I
Right.
love women and they shower. And then you realize the whole thing is just like a theatrical production, except for it's missing the theater and the production.
And it ends up not being entertaining to boot.
No.
Yeah.
Which I guess
problem.
starts our part of it, which is like the meta analysis where you just point at the two Muppets up on the thing making jokes and laughing at it. Or what's that? Staldorf, Waldorf, and Grimley. What's the guy's names? Muppets.
I don't know. Yeah, the dudes the old dudes in the balcony, which is what.
Somebody in chat, help me with this one. The two old dudes in chat that are just throwing the peanut gallery shit. That's what we're doing here.
Waldorf is one of them. I don't know the other one.
Statler, maybe?
I only know that because I've seen people call me and Rob that before. So
What? He's no more gnome jokes?
we're the old. Well, they still drag him for that too.
I want to call him Papa Smurf, but nobody other than you two will get it.
Yeah.
He's got the same beard and everything. And the hat.
Shit, I forgot what I was gonna say.
Oh, Papa Smurf 3
More-
off. It
more
was a funny
powerful.
one. Inside funny, not outside funny. Damn it, dead air. All right, so on this one. It kind of got to me too. And Rob fucked me up when he was talking about the internet's dead stuff.
Mhm.
Because I found this out when I was researching book 2 and 3, is that a lot of the stuff, the only reason I knew even to write it down is because I can remember it. I went to go find it. It's gone.
Wow.
A lot of stuff got deleted. Like a lot of guys, they eventually got big enough that they found a girlfriend and they deleted all of their material because they didn't want to be on the internet anymore. Carl's
Mhm.
gone. Gendernomics isn't in bookstores anymore. The entire Black Label Logic 300 articles all gone.
Yep.
Royce got deleted for a bit there. He came back luckily. Royce in DC is gone. Half the posts are gone. And the ones that aren't gone, you're buried under such like a sea of shit. You have to like think specifically, like I need a proper key phrase of at least 10 words to quote in order to pull that thing up. And Reddit decided to quarantine it, so you can't even search it anymore. They got rid of the robots text, so you can't Google it. And so the stuff's all just gone. And in like 5 years, people are like, "What the fuck is a manosphere?" Or what the
Right.
fuck
It ends up being a perfect metaphor for the situation itself. What was it like? T.S. Eliot had he called it an objective correlative, where there was some kind of real world manifestation. I hate using that. I don't mean it in the way that everybody else means it, but just sort of a real world concrete instance of an emotional or spiritual or idea. And I think that's exactly what happens. And it sucks because I mean Carl's the reason I got back on Twitter at all, because I used to watch you guys in the morning and Carl would be on there, and I caught Carl one time. I was like, hey man, that guy's smart and funny, but he was only on every now and then. And so I got on, I saw that he was on Twitter. So I got on Twitter so I could follow him just because, for the jokes, if nothing else. And, and then some bitch, ups and leaves.
Dude, it's funny. I talk to him every now and again. Still, even though he's completely wiped offline, I have like this super secret, like double encrypted anonymous app. That's the only way I can get a hold of him now.
Right.
And he still doesn't put his face on there. I'm like,
That's
dude,
great.
credit to you. You're really holding on to the gimmick. But
Well,
he bought a dog now. He's got a girlfriend. He's living life. And he's like, I'll never have to worry about one of you guys walking up and saying, hey man, I was a big fan of your work.
That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah. Have you ever had that happen, by the way?
What?
Like somebody walk up's like, oh, you're the harshness guy.
Oh hell no! I've still I got like 1,400 followers on Twitter. That's it. I've got
Oh.
300. I just hit 300 subscribers on my YouTube channel. So ain't nobody recognizing me.
You don't want it though. It's happened to me
No,
twice.
I don't.
Once I
Really?
was in bed with the girl, and I get a text from like a friend's brother. He's like, "Did I just see you with Rolo Tomasi on a thing?" And I had
Oh
a heart
wow.
attack right then because I'm like, "Fuck, doxing." And then the other one was like a month ago. I'm at
That's
the
hilarious.
No Frills, which is like the cheap ethnic grocery store in our area, and I'm just buying
Yeah.
some food. I'm at the till, and some guy walks up. He's like, "Excuse me." I thought I like dropped a wallet or something. He's like, I know you don't like it when people bother you, but I'm a huge fan of your work. My girl's just staring at this thing, like, what the fuck is going on? I'll say this though. So I was like, yeah, thanks. Shook his hand. Have a good day. And when we got back in the car, she was beaming for like the next day and a half. Just because like somebody
Nice.
recognized, like, you're really famous. Wow.
Wow.
And then
Yeah.
of course she can't have like a real heartfelt moment. So she had to like shit on me for it. Well, Ryan, can I be your hero? Like, fuck you, woman.
The closest that and I always meant to tell you this story and I always forgot. And so now I remembered. The closest I ever got to anything like that, which is not close at all. I got one of the lead developer that used to work with me at the company that I left recently.
Mm-hmm.
He and I were talking. He and I got to be, I usually, for the dudes that hung around for a while, we would, even though everybody worked remotely, and I managed a completely remote team, but we would get together every couple of months, shoot the shit, eat some food, do some work in person, all that kind of stuff. And so, I got to be good friends with a lot of these guys, to an extent. And he was younger than me. He was early 30s, and he was having some, marriage shit going on. So he would talk to me about that. And so, I gently kind of said, hey, there's this, I started, throwing some red pill shit at him. And he was like, oh yeah, I'm in the married red pill. I go read the married red pill, whatever. And I was like, really? And he said, yeah. And I said, so do you ever read that Ryan Stone guy or, whatever? And he's like, no, I don't think so. And so I don't, and I said, well, I think he's a moderator of that or something. He said, well, I've mainly been in the Christian, married red pill. And I was like, oh, that's not the same thing. You should go check out the other one. And
dude,
so he went and checked out the other one. He came back and he said, man, that's kind of harsh. And I was like,
how
the
many
harshness
slurs
was
did you
more.
suffer, sir?
That's right. So, and so, that's not like, so then he got familiar with, some of you guys. And so we used to talk about that a little bit. And I never, I mean, he didn't know that I was also Nick August. So, and he didn't know who that was anyway, because I was never active in Reddit and I'm barely active on Twitter. So, but, I was kind of like, well, I wonder what happens if he, really goes exploring this stuff and he sees my picture on on my Twitter account, because by then I had started putting my face, I stopped being anonymous. So I quickly took my my profile picture off Twitter and put something just graphic and generic on there for a while, just because I was still associated with the company to some degree. And he was pretty cool, but you never know. So
yeah, you never know. Still, I always find that whole thing, the anonymity thing, funny, because I think this is a narcissism thing, but everybody assumes that like doxing is like marriage rape or divorce rape.
Yeah,
that everybody's going to get it. And then what I found out is generally nobody cares.
Right.
Nobody really wants me to lose my job.
Right.
Nobody, like, if they see you, like, they might recognize it. And even then it's like, hello, how you doing?
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. But everybody's so terrified of it.
Yeah.
And it's like, all you have to do is not drop a hard RN bomb and you're pretty much good. That and don't diddle kids. I think that's the two internet rules. Don't fuck with cats. Don't diddle kids, and don't drop hard R's.
The standards are so low.
Yeah, and people don't meet it.
Right. Right.
I think every Brett, it's almost like an FBI honeypot sting to like, I need him on camera saying the N-word. So then if he ever gets famous, we got this in our back pockets.
Isn't there some sort of corollary to Dunning-Kruger, which is no matter how low the standard is, somebody will find a way to, not be able to make it.
Oh, it drives me nuts. It's funny, but it drives me nuts because like nobody learns. And it's not, and there's like books on this. I don't know. I don't talk about them much because nobody likes Vox Day in my little circle because he's like a Christian neo-reactionary, whatever the fuck that. I don't even know what a neo-reactionary is.
Right.
But he actually had one good thing called Social Justice Warriors Always Lie. And it was like this. It was like a repeat of that book. So You've Been Publicly Tar and Feathered, I think it's called. Can't remember who wrote that. 1 second here. Publicly Tarred and Feathered. Ah, fuck. All right. That turns out that's a really broad search. So, and all it was he was just showing 8 examples of guys like that Tim Hunt guy, the guy who lost tenure because he had girl scientists cry and try to marry the professor or whatever.
Yeah.
And so they went after his job, and he just brought up like 5 examples of that. And then every time somebody did something right, he's like, they did this. And every time they did it wrong, they're like, they did this. So don't do this, but do this.
Yeah.
I've yet to see anybody follow it. It's been out for like 10 years now. Not a single person has read it.
Yeah.
I've even suggested it to people who are like in the process of getting fucked over. Like I'll tell you offline, but there's this one guy you might even know who has that going on right now. And I brought this up to him. He's like, oh, that's pretty useful. Where were you? And I say basic risk management and OPSEC stuff. He's like, where were you 6 months ago? I'm like, I just assume people come on this platform and do a little bit of professional due diligence before they start running their mouths. I don't know what to tell you.
Right.
They don't.
No.
Like, do you think Tate was ready to get his like $9 million a month empire shut down? Probably not.
Well, that's another one of those benefits to being an old guy who grew up without, this kind of, mass surveillance that we've got going on now, which is really what it is.
Yeah.
Ultimately it, in effect, because, we still have a healthy, most of us have a healthy level of, we either have a healthy level of distrust or we're so ignorant about it all that we get on and we do just what you said. But, watching my kids grow up, because both of my kids are, late 20s, early 30s now. For them getting online was just, they didn't think about anything. It was just like, oh, hey, cool. I get to talk to my friends. I get to do this. And before you know it, they're playing Halo with, some dude from Pakistan or something. And, you have to start, kind of, guiding them a little bit, with common sense. But, a lot of older dudes like me who know something about technology are like, okay, yeah, use this shit, but there's some guidelines to follow. But then other people who are my age who are just totally ignorant about it, would just get on and start doing something innocent before they sent a dick pic to some chick who's either a cop or their HR person who was also on there doing shenanigans, right? So
my favorite example of that was the guy who was on Twitter and he made a second account of like a black dude where he would just talk about racism and end this and end that. But then he forgot to switch his accounts one day, and so his like Harold Ramis account from like Wisconsin,
right,
just sitting there and like, what the fuck?
That's hilarious.
But then he responded to it with like the account that it was supposed to be afterwards, as if he was like the same speaker still going.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just the funniest thing ever. I'm wondering now how many like crazy social justice warrior accounts are just satirical, self-loathing dudes in cubicles that want to, I'm going to sound like Karen. Fuck that. And how many racism guys are just, Sean Kings, except for like not making money off of it. I think it culminated in my tweet. I know I'm rambling here, where what if America is actually fine, the West is going nowhere, and China is just really good at propaganda?
It's a psyop. It's a Chinese psyop. I saw that. That was good. Well, I mean, the amazing thing is that I've known enough people who've gotten busted for just doing, crazy shit online that was basically them pretending to be somebody else.
Really? Oh, I guess does that count as identity theft, or are we talking like?
Well, not anybody. It's more like what you said. It's just like somebody who well, I'm going to go on. I'm going to pretend like I'm a pregnant Samoan woman for a while, and I'm going to talk about pro-choice in Samoa or whatever. And it's funny to me that there've been a lot of people, and when I say a lot, I mean from the standpoint that based on the work I used to do, back to that, and being in charge of user accounts, all the the database for whatever company I was working for, we catch a lot of people pretending to be somebody else, either for fun or for profit, and it's a weird thing because it goes back to all that stuff about you don't know what you don't know, and people who may shit on like Game and the red pill and stuff for, oh, that's not really how life works. But once you've dated 3 or 4 women who turned out to be married, and you've seen it from that side of things, you start realizing that's what it's all about. Your eyes get opened. Well, this is the same kind of thing, because you see people online, you catch people online doing weird stuff that
Jack Murphy.
yeah, well, I mean,
The COVID.
and not even that bad, but just people who enjoy assuming the persona of somebody completely different from them. And there's a weird, I think that's a that fantasy, something that takes place in fantasy land in your head. I mean, I think it's way more widespread and common than I think we tend to think. Because because in the past, maybe you caught some guy cross-dressing, or you saw your manager in a gay bar or whatever, back in the old days. But now, but prior to now, all those fantasies just stayed in your head. But the internet's just an extension of your head in a certain sense. Social media certainly is, and so people just start living that stuff as a fantasy online, and it becomes interactive for them. And I think that's a lot more widespread than I think we think.
It has to be. Dude, I still remember, like, just from like the 90s, there was always those, the ones like the middle-aged soccer moms that were kind of insane, but there was no reasoning with her. But you can't hit a girl, so you kind of just, the husband just like resigned to like, she's crazy, whatever. And you're kind of resigned to, okay, she gets to ramble and to be a compulsive liar. That's fine, but we can't kick her out because she doesn't know how to hunt.
Yeah.
And I think guys are turning into that now, which is scary.
Yeah.
It's really scary. And then you're right, the internet, a couple more likes, and now they have like, oh, maybe I'm right then. Other people like it. Who'd have thunk? Out of all the things that would motivate us, like herd approval.
Right.
That'll get all of us individual man is an island men to get going. I don't need nobody, but all these likes have shown me that's the way to be.
Right. Well, and you could tell. I think you could tell the people who struggle with it the most, because they're the ones who are the most concerned about insisting on how authentic they are.
Oh yeah.
Because authenticity doesn't really even mean what they mean it to mean. But
that's the best part of it, though, because it's literally like, what is that? Tom Cruise plays an authentic spy in Mission Impossible. So when they use it, they're accidentally like being accurate.
Right.
You don't know how right you are, sir. That's the most authentic acting I've ever seen. Look up the word sincere. Get back to me. It's almost like your brain knows in the back. It's like it knows you're full of shit.
Yeah.
So it can't fully let you commit to the bit. So you have to give like a wink to the audience, but they don't tell you about it. So you just kind of go with it. Well, I'm convinced. I'm convinced that's how it works.
I'm an authentic patriarch. What does that mean? What does that mean? Jesus,
how would I even define that? I mean, you could put some observations onto it. Like, okay, so when he sets the rules in the house, his wife follows. But I mean, you already know most of those guys, the wife is communicating with him. In other words, do what I want, and I need you to feel good about it. Because it's not just enough to do what I want, but you have to believe what I tell you to believe.
Well, it's if you can't have patriarchy, actual honest to God patriarchy, then we're going to change what we're doing to mean patriarchy. And the right does it just as much as they complain about the left doing it. And my litmus test for patriarchy has always been, if you can't drag your woman through the town square by the hair and slap her and not get thrown in jail or get killed by a mob, then you're not living in a patriarchy.
Yeah. And, what did she do? That's never been the first thought in people's heads. Did we ever have a patriarchy? Like, when was the last time you can think of? I honestly can't.
I mean,
I always hear about people. It's always 20 years before wherever you are now. In the 90s, people were talking about the abusive chicks in the 70s. Now it's like, oh, remember in the 90s with those abusive dudes? I'm sure in the 40s, like, dude, in the 1920s, guys were just pricks.
Remember Henry VIII?
Oh, geez. He's sitting there. It's like, thank God I'm not, Louis the Fourth.
That's right. Yeah. It reminds me of all the guys that do the God flex, because there are a lot of guys I've seen who are, thought leaders, whatever they call themselves, and they're secular and they're kind of rough around the edges, and they're actually kind of fun. And then all of a sudden, they decide, well, I need to help save the West, and so then they either become Christian or Christian adjacent. And well, I agree, but that he was Sean Connery. But
dude, congratulations, by the way. I don't know if you're a mom yet. This is that Mac.
Oh yeah,
honestly, role model for girls online. Got pregnant, decided I am not gonna sit here and like use my fetus for clout. She decided to go just live her life and be a family person. Kudos to her, man.
Yeah, she was nice enough to come on my Monday night live stream a few months back. We had a good convo about politics and stuff.
Is there a good convo on politics, really?
Well,
the conversation was nice. The topic was dog shit.
Yeah.
I cut you off though in the middle of your thing when you were talking about the guys who found Jesus last week, and now they're like the 8-year-old kid talking to you about dinosaurs, and you're like, I know.
Well, I mean, it's that, and it's also they want to redefine. Christianity as exemplified by the New Testament, particularly Jesus, and the common manosphere power dad patriarch trope, they don't exactly jive in every way, but the right starts doing this revisionist history thing that they always accuse the left of doing, but they do it on, all right, well, Jesus, wants us to storm the Capitol, Jesus, and I'm not necessarily saying that there's anything wrong with storming the Capitol. I'm just, it's just like there's not, so I'm going to flex this God thing, but I'm not going to be a suffering servant like Jesus was in the New Testament, hearkening back to fulfilling Old Testament prophecy.
Well,
Jesus is a gym bro, and fuck y'all.
Speaking of the Christian married red pill, that was literally, I don't know if you've been to that place much, but that was their MO. Was they took red pill and they went, yeah, but the cussing. So no cussing.
Yeah.
And then they spent most of their day looking through the Bible. Like, we need to find passages that sound similar to Rolo shit. And then we'll put them all together. And then we could say, okay, now we're allowed to like fuck our wives. And it was such a strange thing. And they were like really like baseball autism, like looking up stats. Okay, Barry Bonds is 0.3, that kind of baseball stat stuff.
Yeah.
And it was like, imagine if all of that brain power had gone into anything else.
Right.
Other than trying to get a rationale that you're allowed to stand up to your wife. It would have been amazing.
How many Elon Musks would we have right now if dudes weren't so artistic?
We wouldn't know, because it'd be on Mars right now, terraforming land and making sure we had enough genetic diversity. That's the real diversity.
That's right. Well, a few weeks ago, I got dragged by a bunch of members of that, the weird Catholic procreation, sex is only for, fulfilling God's purpose cult. God. And they just dragged me to no end for saying that. Well, ultimately what I said was that, they said, spilling your seed is preventing, the natural life process that God put into place from fulfilling itself. And I said, well, if that's true, then, every month that a female has a viable egg that she allows to go unfertilized because she doesn't, fuck some dude, that's pretty much the same thing. And so they got this weird how many angels dance on the head of a pin kind of argument about the whole thing. And, I checked out as fast as I could, just because.
I don't blame you. I had one of those guys. His first response was like, this guy makes a YouTube channel attracting preteens or something. Like, I was like, fuck, that was a very specific burn that made no sense.
Right.
Do I need to ask some harder hitting questions?
Well, the amazing thing you learn about social media, if you stay on there anytime at all, and I've been called a lot of things on there just this year.
Did any of them ever like hit home? Like, were they even close? I've never had one that's like, wow, he's got a point.
I don't think so. I mean, one guy said I was a shithead. I guess that's about as close as anybody ever got.
That's not even offensive.
Right.
You would have probably said thanks.
Yeah, I did. I said I'm that and more. Just wait to get to know me. But I've been called, like one guy, and this shows you how much people project, and we all do it to some degree. And I think part of the trick, and one of the tricks in life, is to learn how to catch yourself from doing that kind of stupid mental gymnastics. But one guy,
self-awareness is fucking no money in that.
I mean, one guy, called me a grifter and a manosphere cult leader because I was here to help men.
That guy.
I was here to help men, and yet I was doing all this stuff to subvert that, and I was doing it for some kind of financial gain. I was like, first of all, I ain't making no money here. If you knew the money I make in technology consulting, that's a laughable, that's a laughable accusation. But just the fact that I'm some sort of
a cult leader,
manosphere content creator, cult leader, all that kind of stuff is just, it was ludicrous. So I've been called that. I've been called a lot of other stuff. I've been called I was accused 2 weeks ago. I was accused of being an apologist for pedophiles because I asked one chick a question, which was, what should the legal age of consent be?
Oh boy.
And that turned into you're either basically she implied I was either a pedophile or I was an apologist for pedophiles. And
when the need to find a man hurts so bad, you have to lash out. Accept no substitutes. That's like dude, who's this Rose chick, by the way? Do you know what I'm talking about? The Pinochet Rose. I just sent out like it's like my most viral tweet, and I was like a toilet. Literally, I was on a toilet and I had 3 minutes between starting and wiping, and I regretted it ever since. Right? Like, because she was like, "Yeah, all the men are like weesh and soy at 36. What's up with this?" And then the next thing was like, "Maybe you should aim older." She goes, "I don't want to date a man past 40. I deserve better." And I was just like, "Does anybody want to tell her?" Holy shit!
Yeah, I saw all of that, and
I didn't. The first one I saw was when she was like, "I've been trying to get a hold of you all day," and then I look back, I'm like, "Holy fuck!"
Yeah.
I was writing. I was busy.
That was a dumpster fire of all dumpster fires. I had seen that, and I don't really know who she is, but
I don't either. But everybody follows her, and now like everybody's liking all of her stuff, and it's popping up on my timeline. I'm like, is she some big deal that I had no idea about, or what?
Well, as I recall, and I may be wrong about this, but what she actually said in that tweet was, "I'm in my mid-30s, and I'm not interested in a man past his mid-40s."
Yeah.
And she said, "But you can't find him anywhere." And I actually, I don't follow her, but it showed up on my timeline for some reason. So I replied to her and I said, "Go to high-end cigar bars, go to this,
Oh, I saw that.
And
didn't she kind of shoot that down a bit too?
She immediately wanted to argue. I said, high-end cigar bars, gun ranges, and there was another thing on there. And she said, and I don't remember what it was, but she said, "Well, those guys are kind of soft." And I was like, "I gave you 3 choices, and there are more than just that." So it was the whole thing about, why did I even take this seriously to begin with? Because I should have. I have learned my lessons by now, but clearly I forgot.
I fall for it all the time. Where I'm going to be serious this time, and then you instantly regret it. I get it.
And so she wanted to fight things to shoot that. I said, "All right. So if you don't want to go there." Oh, it was golf. It was like go to a golf tennis club, and she's like, "Oh, golf players are weak." And I was like, "All right, so you still have gun ranges and cigar bars. I mean, it's." And so and then she just dismissed it, and then she picked a fight with you, and she picked a fight with Allie, and her little exchange with Allie is what is the reason I posted that thing about the great thing about women coming into the red pill space is that the cat fights are better, and that's where that's what made me think of that, and that's what motivated that tweet.
Oh man!
and then I saw what she did on your thing, and I was like, "Holy crap!"
It was great. Like, thank you. I got like a 2,000 like Twitter tweet now, which is great. Right. I actually started growing subscribers again, so I should thank her for that. It's always the ones you never expect. I put out some real clever shit, and everybody's like, "Yeah, fuck this." And then I'll just be like, whamming, am I right? And all of a sudden, like, holy shit, guys, we got to send this to Elon.
Yeah.
I've never understood.
Well, I learned that
mass interest.
I learned that a while back because I'll say, because I'll do the same thing. I'll be like, "Oh, hey man, this is just, this is the best. This is the tweet of the year right here." And I'll throw that out there. And like you and Chesty and Rob will like it, and that's it. But then I'll do something on there about how
Poop.
we need we need to we need to kill the pedophiles and we need to storm the Capitol, and then all of a sudden I've got 20 new followers, and I got 200 likes on that shit. So
you've really hit it big when people look into your profile to find anything that you're selling, like a book, and then just make fun of it. That's always my go-to. Look at this fuck files. He's had women for a decade. What a nerd. And then it'll always be some chick saying shit like that. And then 15 dudes that I know want to fuck her underneath, like, I can't believe he would ever be like. So I'm like, okay, I know this one. Hope she sees this, bro. Then you completely lose your mind in the chat channel. Yeah. And then I DM the girl later, and then to find out she was like, yeah, thanks for the clout. I'm like, oh, that's perfect. Like, nobody really cares. Nobody's really emotional about it at all. It's all performative. Right. It's like, how can you get really mad about this stuff?
Well, I mean,
although I still think that Rose chick, I think she really meant it, but I think she's just crazy.
Well, I think a lot of the, I mean, so many people are obviously on Twitter to either have a social life or supplement their social life, and it's a big thing for them. That how can they not take it seriously? But for the rest of us, it's just, I mean, it's always a gag. I mean, everything I post, it's rare that I post anything that really needs to be taken seriously. I mean, hey, I'm teaching a crypto course, that's serious, but almost everything I post is like, there's like 3 levels of irony to it. And I'm just being a smart ass. And then the number of people that just take it seriously or take it in their totally own direction just, goes back to that projection thing and shows you how over invested everybody is in a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. It's almost like they need to feel something. I need to be angry. I remember Dead and Sushi. I don't know if you know her, Kate. She's on Twitter too. She's always around the red pill spaces. She's the Texas chick. She went viral once when Justin Wang made fun of her because all of her selfies had the exact same pose, like all 500 of them, whatever.
Yeah.
So she's been in like the red pill for longer than most anybody. And where was I going with this one? I forgot. Never mind.
We're talking about.
What was I talking about?
Getting outraged and overinvested and stuff.
Oh yeah, I forget. It probably wasn't important. Yeah. The performative narcissism. That's what I'm calling this. I'm putting like titles as we go when I see there's like breakpoints. Performative narcissism. I don't know. Do you think that's clever? Like that's apt?
Yeah, you could pick up where the last psychiatrist left off.
Oh, that'll be good. I keep hearing he wrote a porn book now, and I've got to go read it. And I kind of want to, but I also kind of don't. I always hate like when you see your heroes in places other like if I see Rolo talk, like I haven't listened to his music other than once. I'm like, I don't want to think of him as like Slash. I need him to be Roger Tomarso.
Right.
Tim Pool with longer hair and a better audience, Is that what you guys call the gray pill moments when you're too old and you forget things?
We've been talking. Greenlight has been on most of my live streams that I do on Monday nights now, or with guys that are as old as me or older, because I got requests for we need to we need to do more old guy stuff, because most of the red pill space, at least in terms of application, it's mainly seems to be. I know this is not technically true, but for practical purposes, it seems to be aimed more at young guys or it's older guys
18 to 23-year-olds want to get laid, basically.
Whatever. Yeah, and so we were talking, because I had Will, who goes by Rivers Hedge on Twitter. He's got about 10 years on me. He's in his early 60s, and he was on a couple weeks ago. We got to talking about stuff like that, and how you get to a point where not everybody in their 50s wants to go to Miami and run day game, right? Not everybody we don't need to learn how to dress. We've been doing it for a while, that kind of stuff. So it's
wipe your ass back to front. You don't want a yeast infection.
Exactly.
Or no, front to back, sorry. God damn, I can't even get the vagina monologues right, because I'm grifter am I?
You're supposed to have that stuff like ready to fly.
Yeah. Honestly, it's weird how few, like the delayed adolescence. I always knew about the thing. People are taking longer to grow up. And yeah, partially it's an economic thing, but partially it's because you just don't have to. I get it. Yeah. I'm playing Minecraft. I'm not above it. But I'm realizing how bad it is now when there's 36-year-olds still acting like teenagers.
Hmm.
Like my girl's watching this show now, and it's called Love is Blind. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
Oh boy. So it's a bunch of girls, like 32-year-old boss bitches who look like they used to be hot 10 years ago. And they're trying to find a husband, but you're not allowed to meet each other. You can only talk through a wall. It's like the female version of glory holes. And then once you decide to get married, you're allowed to see each other. And then they feed them booze and put them in a room full of each other. And then the drama starts. Oh,
It's like an emotional glory hole.
it really is. And it's funny because the girls are clearly like, they got the baby rabies. They got the, I haven't been told I'm pretty in 6 months, like that kind of vibe. And then the guys are always like 26-year-olds that, yeah, you know, I'm in college right now. I might finally make something of myself. I'm a Nigerian man who's like very traditional and I love my mom. And these guys are like emotionally stunted. And then these girls here are kind of jaded and like run roughshod on them, but they really want a man. So they're like staying nice to him. But at the same time, you know, they're both kind of play acting a bit because the closer you get to marriage, the longer you stay on the show and the better a chance you can leverage it into your own reality TV series.
Yeah.
And I get now why Donovan used to make the real red pill power hour where he would just watch this shit and like comment like, you see guys, this is why this TV show scripted character here with the crazy editing is why you need to put a GPS tracker in your girl's car. And it's like that,
Awesome.
what is that? It's that stupid horror film where everybody's mouth was stitched to the other guy's ass. And so it's like the caterpillar.
Yeah.
Everybody's just eating shit in like this big circle. Except for, you know, emotional wise. And
Nice.
I'm starting to have like a guilty pleasure from it. I used to like have disdain and I hated it, but I've been exposed enough where now I'm like, I should make a red pill coffee about that big boob chick that the fiance called her a 9, not a 10. But he also thought the blonde in the other room was hot. And then they had like a 3-day fight over it. And his whole thing was like trying to argue with her. It's like, look, a 9 is objectively a great rank. Like, there's no way this guy naturally was this like clever with his stupidity. This had to have been a producer going, just say this, and then you got to respond this way. There's no way.
That reminds me of a show that I watched a couple times, you know, where, you know, these guys would interview all these drunk hoes and sometimes they would
care to narrow it down, sir.
Sometimes they would put on ninja suits and run around the room and all this other stuff. And I watched a couple of those once and I was like, I don't know how old those guys are, but they seem to be too old to be doing, you know, shit like that. And I know they're doing it for entertainment value, but it's just like, dear God, life's too short. I can't do that. I can't do that.
It used to be so much better though. That's what I remember in like the 2000s, the late 2000s. Canada had this awesome show, Keys to the VIP. I praise it all the time. It was like when Mystery, the pickup artist, he had his show on VH1 as well. But it was like fun.
Right.
This one had like a council of the 5 pickup elders. There was the athlete, there was the rock star, there was the emotional emo guy, there was the country guy, and then they would like everybody would send in applications of why you got game, and they would pick 2 of you and they would pitch you against each other in like in the Thunderdome. Like you need to pick up a girl by saying less than 30 words. And the guy won it. He's like, here's his plan. He just lifted up his shirt, put the girl's hand on his abs, and then asked for her number. And he won. And I was like, yes. But you know what I mean? Like it was positive and people liked seeing guys win at the end. And it was fun and nobody took it too seriously. And it disappeared because now it's just like, I want to watch people's miserable lives fall apart before my eyes. I need you to get drunk on White Claw, get kicked off the podcast, and bring a pistol with you next time. Like, are we going full Kowloon walled city with the dating marketplace, you figure? Does anybody want to see anybody succeed anymore? Is Miller Lite gone and never coming back?
I think that's an excellent point because that's one of the reasons why I take time off from this myself, even though, you know, I don't really spend all that much time on Twitter and doing this shit, but you know, just, you know, and I think a healthy amount of skepticism and cynicism is a good thing. And I can't help myself, you know, now that I'm older, you know, it's just kind of comes with the territory.
Yeah.
But, you know, I find myself, you know, sometimes I'll take a break from what I'm doing, working or whatever I'm doing, and I'll get on Twitter and I'll just see all this stupidity. And I immediately go into like, you know, cynical mode. And I'm like, oh, you guys are just a bunch of fucked up morons. And then I think I'm like, man, what are you doing? You know, what the fuck are you doing? So, you know, I just get back off and I go do something life affirming. And it's like there's so much, and that's the funny thing about it all, is because I didn't get on Twitter initially to sell anything. I didn't get on, you know, for friends. I mainly just got on to, you know, to follow
cool
Carl,
kids were doing it.
to follow Carl, to follow the rest of you guys, and you know, in a serious way, you know, I mentioned, you know, I would do some, you know, personal kind of talking, counseling, whatever, with, you know, some of the younger guys that I worked with, who you know, would come to me with like, you know, personal shit. And so I kind of like, I knew what I wanted to say, but my way of doing things has always been, you know, just, you know, quit being a pussy and go figure it out.
Yeah.
And even though that's not necessarily, there was more depth to it than that. But so I started following you guys, you know, more to get an idea of, when people did ask me that shit, what's the best way to respond, you know?
Yeah.
You know, so I just look for model responses from a lot of you guys for that, which I, you know, was very helpful. But that was
amazing,
it.
isn't it? How when you see the model answers from different people, like their levels of articulation kind of lets you know how full of shit the guy is.
Exactly. How full of shit they are, or how much, you know, how full of shit they're not.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's exactly true. And, you know, most people are full of shit. So, you know, that's the problem, you know, it's the law of averages. But that was helpful. But then, you know, it sort of, then I started, you know, having all these conversations with Rob, you know, and Barry Nishizawa was on back then. And so we used to trade stories and stuff. We'd write fiction, and, you know, he'd write I enjoyed his fiction and stuff. And then, you know, Rob and I, you know, decided to start doing Let 'Em Burn. And, you know, then I got to know, and I edited your book, and, you know, got to know you, and, you know, and so I just, you know, you know, I hang around because it's like, I don't even think about it now, but, you know, there's just so much retardation out there that it's, you know, you can't spend too much time immersed in all that stuff. It just, you know.
Well, I mean, you worry because at some point, osmosis, some of it's going to have an effect.
I think it already has. Yeah.
You think? Like, I've still never talked about No Nut November offline ever. They're Adam,
Right.
They're Alex. You want to talk about No Nut November? There's your one.
Yeah, I mean and I find myself, you know, it's like I was saying earlier, I find myself getting online just to make some shitty comments and then, you know, get back off. And it's like, you know, why
write yourself a book again, and then that'll give you a reason to shitpost on Twitter. Because I'll tell you right now, my stupid memes where I say like, where I have like ISIS photos and they put like some manosphere meme on it, that probably sells more books than anything. So my shit posting is truly a revenue generating activity.
Well, I have a novel that I haven't finished yet because I got into doing Punch Riot, so that sapped all of my free time from my own personal creative projects. So I'm still working on that. I'm also writing another book on my little made up thing called Donut Theory, and I think that's actually going to be pretty funny. I think, you know, so
it'll be good
that
if it's as good as Horseshoe Theory. Because wasn't that what you did about it? Like, it was a play on words for the Horseshoe Theory. Everybody was the same at the ends. And your Donut Theory was that, what was it? Donuts don't make themselves. We have to make them. But
it was
there was like an evolved thing. I really sucked at it. You tell me.
There was no plan to crawl out of the primordial. There was no plan to crawl up out of the primordial ooze, but donuts don't just make themselves. And so I've got this whole philosophy wrapped up in that. You know, so I've been writing essays about it. And I was going to start posting them on my website, but I decided I would just do a little extra work, make it all into a slim volume, and just sell it on Amazon and see if anybody buys it. So
nice. You should. It's not hard. I mean, my book sells. I don't know how the fuck that happened. And that chick, there's this chick I follow. She actually got some stats about like how publishing houses like Penguin and Random House, I guess there's a big lawsuit going on. And they were saying something like 95% of the books that gets released by major publishing houses sell less than a dozen copies. which is a bit of like, there was like a bit of a nuance to it, but essentially most of them are just vanity projects from people.
Right.
The politicians just sell a book so that way, as like a super PAC, you can buy a bunch of copies. So it's a way of like laundering money to your favorite politician.
Right.
I thought everybody was reading Hillary Clinton's book. Turns out not true.
Just another way to get their name in front of the, name on TV. That's it.
Yeah.
Get
And so
another
just me
reason to
selling a
run.
couple hundred copies a month, and I'm barely literate. You actually have like, don't you have like a PhD in English in speaking good, or a
Speaking
master's
good.
degree in good learning?
I ain't got nothing like that. I have a master's in linguistics and literature, which shows you how much time I wasted when I was younger and dumber. But yeah.
Sorry, Chomsky, didn't mean to offend you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's funny you bring up Chomsky, because now we don't have time to talk about him, but that would have been a good one.
Yeah.
The the thing that's interesting about it though is that everybody shits on liberal arts degrees, and I do too, because I have two. I have undergraduate's philosophy and religion, graduate is linguistics and literature. But the funny thing is that I leveraged the master's degree into my first career, which was teaching and editing and professional research. Which paid for the degree, 10 times over. So,
Nice.
you can do stupid stuff and still, recover from it. It's not the end of the world.
Well, that's always my joke. I laugh how like ex-cons are like, don't ever go to college. It's not worth it. I'm like, well, stealing a car wasn't worth it, yet here we are.
I like it when they leverage their criminal record for clout and authenticity and authority and expertise. It's like, doesn't somebody who managed to be successful in life without having to go to prison first, don't they know even a little bit more
about not getting caught at very least?
That's right, exactly. How to be
I was
a
laughing
crook.
at one guy too, and it's the crimes. They always don't tell you the crime, and you find out it's something like grand larceny, and they're making you sound like, oh wow, he murdered 3 Crips, and now he's in the slammer. It's like, no, he was just tax fraud.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Imagine being in jail for tax fraud. Like at least the child diddlers, they get a bunch of attention, and they have to, and if they get out of jail, that means they're tough as nails.
Yeah, which they usually don't. Right. Yeah. That's hilarious. I went to prison. Listen to me.
Yeah. Oh, it kills me. That AJ Cortez. I'll never stop laughing at that guy.
Oh,
Such like a
he do
he's
that?
Just the ass model of Instagram.
Did he go to jail?
Yeah. He was a theft. I think he was the grand larceny guy. Something like that. It's really stupid. But I guess he took that line to heart from Game of Thrones, where like, if you wear it as an armor, they can't hurt you with it, which is slightly different than use it as a marketing gimmick, but whatever. But yeah, and then his thing was that. And it was just because he's like 6'2", he's got that Greek god hair, and he's got a 6-pack. So he has no problems getting girls, and a lot of people follow him because he's hot. So he makes enough money where he doesn't have to worry about it, and he's always got a girlfriend with money. But he's here giving people like worldly wisdom, and it's kind of like, it's like Tate. Like your dad gifted you all this money, and you run a whore empire in the land of thirst. Like what? And you're laundering money for the Russians. Like, what do you want me to tell you? Please tell me how to run my business, sir.
Well,
I think it's that need that people have that are lucky to like try and say it's the gumption. It wasn't luck. Trust me. I don't think I do.
It's like, they want it to be the next Horatio Alger story. I don't know if you know who that is, but he was this guy there. He used to write these cheesy novels in I guess it was the 19th century, maybe an early 20th century, about the stereotypical kid born into poverty, but through his good character and just pluck, his sheer pluck, he went and sought his fortune in the world. And because he was such a good person, a rich capitalist or somebody would always see him doing this great deed and say, I'm going to take you under my wing and, teach you how to run my organization. And he always ends up, successful or something. And then, and so those were real popular for a long time. It was just kind of like early success porn before the internet. And before you could, sell crypto courses and shit and tell people they're going to get rich that way. And, but then Nathaniel West wrote this novel called A Cool Million, which was a satire of those stories. And it was about this guy who was born into poverty, and then his life went on things just kept getting worse for him, and he would like lose limbs and stuff because I think the subtitle of the novel was the dismantling of Lemuel Pitkin, and because the Horatio Alger stories always had a character. The main character's name was always something like, Dick Dodge or, something, Dirk Squarejaw kind of stuff. And
Nice.
so this one, his name Lemuel Pitkin, and he goes through life, and he just, he meets a wealthy capitalist who puts him in charge of his zoo, and, the lion bites his leg off or some kind of shit. I don't remember what happens, but it was just that kind of thing. It was hilarious.
I love those ones. That would be funny.
Yeah.
It's the American Dream stuff.
Yeah, it's Tony.
Weird.
It's
That's
early
kind of what
Tony
it is,
Robbins.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't get why people have to you have to make $10 million or you're a failure, and so you have to aim for the sky. Did anybody ever consider, isn't everybody bragging about the 6-figure side hustle? Like, whatever happened to making 6 figures a year, like $100,000 selling Gumroad courses? That's attainable,
right?
Nobody wants that anymore. Is that to 2018?
Well, I think since crypto came along, I think 100K is just kind of pleb stuff now.
Hey, speaking of which, crypto's not doing so hot lately, is it? Because I've noticed nobody's bragged about their fucking Lambos in like months.
Everything's definitely pulled back. Yeah, everything's down. But I do think we're heading into. I think next year we're going to start seeing some positive price action. But
yeah, well, isn't it like I don't know much about crypto. I've lost 20 grand on it myself. For me, it was fun. It was my Vegas money, and so yeah, that's why I don't gamble.
Yeah.
But the way they explained it to me was it's shorting society moving on. You're basically betting on the apocalypse, but not full apocalypse, because then the power goes out and you lose all your crypto. You need things to get worse to a point. Is that fair, you think?
I don't know.
Like, are they treating it like Adam Schiff or whatever treats gold?
I'm not a sophisticated investor, and I don't look at it kind of like from that 30,000 foot view.
Yeah.
For me, it's just like okay, Ethereum's long, and I buy a bunch of Ethereum and then sell it when it gets high. I mean, that's the
so you're just treating it like any standard boring investment.
Pretty
buy low,
much.
sell high.
I mean, I've done some pretty degenerate shit, with small portions of my crypto, because I am a gambler, and before
XRP
COVID
or Hex, is that the ones that everybody hates now?
Well,
oh wait, it's save it for the course, guys. Sign up to the course. We'll have a link in the description. Find out what happened with Hex and XRP.
Well, I don't talk about XRP.
Sell it, god damn it! Stop pretending like
What?
Do a soy face. We'll put it on the thumbnail. We'll sell some Hex XRP analysis.
Well, I mean, my crypto course, I don't really teach investing, because I don't really think I'm a sophisticated enough investor to teach that. What I teach people how to do is just to get into the space and navigate it with best practices safely and securely, so that they know what they're doing. They don't actually get scammed. They accidentally get scammed.
Oh.
They don't, all that kind of stuff. Because I think that a lot of the courses out there are more geared toward investing, and even though they're beginners can be fine with that, most of that, the beginning stuff, they move too fast through that. And a lot of I target, or at least when I initially got into doing that, it was with family and friends of mine who knew absolutely nothing about crypto, and they wanted to learn how to okay, so how do I put some money in the system and move it from point A to point B without it getting stolen by someone? And so that's what my course is. Yeah, I mean, it's very pragmatic, and it's not very expensive, and so I do think crypto is a good thing to be involved in, because I've done pretty well in it, and it's been a lot of fun for me. So I just wanted to, for people that need a little bit more hand holding through the basics of it, I figured I've been in it long enough that I could definitely help people with that.
It just reminds me so much of when the laser first came out, the solution in search of a problem.
Yeah.
Everybody who seems to want to figure out a system for it, they keep forgetting why fiat was better. Like, who was it saying that? Was it you that said that, where fiat is just crypto backed by, or crypto is money, fake money backed by nuclear bombs and armies?
It wasn't
crypto
me.
is fake money backed by nerds on computers.
Yeah, that wasn't me, but that's not bad.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah.
And then I read the white papers. I read the white paper on Bitcoin, and I got halfway through the Ethereum one. So I kind of understand broad strokes. I don't think anybody actually reads the research anymore on any of this stuff.
I mean,
And
I did. I did the same thing. I read the white papers, and
I'm not a math pro either, so I can only understand it to a point.
I'm not a math pro at all. You know, I have a pretty strong background in technology, though, which is, you know, was my interest in it or initially,
Yeah.
just out of curiosity. And you know, I just wish I'd have, you know, like everybody else, I wish I'd have gotten in a lot sooner than I
When
did.
it was $10.
But, yeah.
But I mean, that's what everybody says. Oh, if I had gotten in at 10, I'd be making a fortune right now. It's like, yeah, because, and I remember all the things. If you would have got in at 10 and you managed to avoid the Mount Gox thing where everybody lost all their money, and you avoided, like, there's like 7 or 8 different crises when China did its thing. If you avoided all of those giant, like, bottomings out and hollowings out of crypto and just kept your things, then yeah, you'd have been fine. But
Well,
who's really going to avoid all of it?
Well, you know, that, you know, like Matt Randall says, crypto is like buying air, not an investment. Hey, if I could invest in air, I'd be pretty fucking rich. So, you know, what crypto did for me was, you know, I don't care if anybody invests in it or uses it or not, or whatever language you want to use, but, you know, it enabled me to retire a hell of a lot earlier than I thought I would be able to. So
Fair.
there is value there. It's just, you know, there's just a lot of risk.
Oh, and then here's Paul with the $4. Thank you, by the way. Don't make it a $5 super chat, because then I have to talk about the cuck article. The running gag, $5. If you want to end a career, put a $5 super chat and bring up their pet peeve, and they'll yell at Sydney Watson online.
Nice.
What's your feelings on actively trading, like day trading? For me, honestly, I don't like it. I never liked it, but it's not because of the tech. It's because of the velocity. Like for my online trading profiles with fiat and normal stocks and the Canadian TSX, I can do that instantly. I can move pretty fast. With crypto, it just takes too long. And so I don't like that because it's way too volatile for me. But that's just me.
I like it because at about age 47, which I think is the right age to do it, I started playing a lot of blackjack and I started gambling and, you know, all that stuff. And so there's a whole lot of stuff that went on there, and crypto was kind of a way for me to, I see crypto as it's still gambling. It's gambling, but it's a little bit, if you do it right, it's a little bit safer than, you know, just, you know, blackjack and roulette and shit. But the like I've, you know, I made the chunk of my biggest chunk of money off of simply buying stuff that was very low at the right time. And then, you know, I was fortunate enough to ride a big wave up. And so I think, you know, if you invest, you know, your money and you leave it, it's like with anything else. If you take the simple route, if you get in at a good price, eventually, you know, assuming no black swan events and all the usual caveats, you know, it's going to pump, and then eventually you're going to be able to sell it at a higher price, which is, again, the extent of, you know, my sophistication. However, I've traded with leverage. I've done, you know, I do swing trading.
That's the big balls on this man.
I do swing trading. I've done about everything you can do, at least to a small extent, in the crypto space. So I'm familiar with all of it. And I don't like, depending on how you define day trading, I don't like day trading, but I do like swing trading, and I've done fairly well off of that. Which is swing trading? It's, you know, it's basically, you know, it's short term. It's a short term investment strategy. So, you know, you try to watch how the market's trending and do a little technical analysis, and you just, you know, buy low in February, sell high in April, you know, that kind of stuff. It's just, it's the same investment strategy as a long-term strategy, except, you know, you're trying to play the more volatile action in the short term. And I've done a lot of that, but I've also been watching this stuff for like 6 years. So I've got it.
Helps.
Yeah. And that's another reason why I wanted to teach the basics course, was to kind of say, all right, here's the basics. Here's how you basically navigate the space. Here are all your options out there. Here's what you can do. Here's what's available. And then I also, toward the end, I say, okay, here's what people are going to try to sell you on. If you're serious about actually getting into an investment strategy, these are the next steps you probably want to take, and these are the things you want to watch out for. So it's kind of like that.
Risk management almost. That's actually probably better, because isn't that the rule of investing? Don't lose money. You'll always win as long as you don't lose money.
Yeah. It's easy, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, that's what I did with normal investing. The pandemic hit. I just invested in things that really suffered through the pandemic and people panicked about. So a whole bunch of stocks went from like 60 to 12.
Yeah.
And then I wait for it to bottom out. And then I'm like, okay, I'll throw it in there. And then the pandemic lifted, everything went back up, and it got to about, didn't go all the way back up to 50, but hit 30 again. And I'm like, awesome. Just doubled my retirement fund twice over. That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, what I did was I was, with crypto, I got in around 2016 to a small degree. And it was basically just because if I want to learn about something, I've got to put a little bit of skin in the game, or else I'm not very motivated.
You lose interest,
so,
yeah.
Right. So I did that. And then a lot of things kind of happened in early 2020, including me leaving my company and getting a nice severance package. And then the COVID thing hit. And then in March, everything bottomed out, so Bitcoin was, $4,000, and, Ethereum was down to like 100, 120. I don't remember what it was. And so from March through, October, I just bought a shitload of
Damn.
good
Bitcoin
crypto,
4,000.
good cryptos that were way undervalued. And then I just, by like February of the next year, everything had pumped up enough that
you would love Canadian real estate, because that's about the same.
Yeah.
Dude, here, Vancouver Island, perfect example, because we're always like foreign investors. China's parking a lot of money there.
Yeah.
I was sailing with guys who bought houses back when they were $150,000. And every year they would make like $100,000 in equity off their home. There was guys who sailed 4 years. Their $100,000 home ended up being $500,000 by the time, and they just retired.
Nice.
They just sold it, retired, moved to the Bahamas. And this was not just Canada. It's not just in Victoria, but every city I moved to had like a new property bubble starting up right then and there. So it was pretty good. It's my joke is because the Canada's so bad with inflation, I'm going to accidentally become a millionaire.
Yeah.
But now in Toronto, houses, $1 million base, bare minimum. The minimum you can get a house for is $1 million. And that's like a shack in the woods kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I have a little bit of property, and I was seriously thinking about getting into more, especially rental property, because my parents do that and have done well with that. But after I saw everything that happened during, the COVID thing,
the renting, no kicking people out shit,
all of that stuff, and let's face it, I'm in my 50s. I got to retire a hell of a lot sooner than I thought I would. For people who watch Let 'Em Burn, and they're in the little Let 'Em Burn club, they know that I spent like pretty much all of 2021 and early 2022 just hanging out in Florida with my girlfriend and being a degenerate. So I going back and doing anything that's going to require a lot of work at this point, I've already done all that. I've done the grind. I've done the startup thing was a grind for 15 years and stuff. And so I kind of like just if I can make the little bit of consulting I do, and then my investments and stuff work, I don't really want a job.
That was my favorite part of that whole phase, by the way, with all the pool shots. Cause like, you're not making, like, obviously you have money, but you're not making a 6-figure salary. I don't think you have 6-pack abs, and all the stuff the gurus, like your notch count's not like at 50 in 6 years or whatever. Like all the stuff they said you had to get a woman wouldn't work. And you did none of it. And you're sitting there with receipts. And what's the first response that anybody who actually wanted the life that you're actively bragging about? They're like, oh, you fucking grifting poser.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's when I realized people don't want to win. They don't want it. They want to believe in the illusion. And you dispelled the illusion by actually living it. And all you had to do is just take some general action, some easy to do stuff that anybody could do. Are you even 6 feet tall? That's what I need.
Like I always tell Rob, I'm only 5'10". And actually, I think I've shrunk a little bit. I think my bones have compressed a little bit. I'm probably 5'9.5" now. But
that's just the alpha process if you're skeleton, yeah.
Well, I mean, I did the 6-figure thing. I certainly don't make 6 figures off of any kind of work now. And I had 6-pack abs when I was 18.
Everybody
Does that
did.
count?
Like,
but
saying,
you know,
I
and
was hot as a hot a girl when I was 18. It's like, really? Tell me more. How did you do
I
it?
don't, you know, I aside from being relatively healthy, I don't have any. I got other things I want to do. So having six pack at this point is just not necessary. So, yeah.
I just like being able to see my belt buckle. It's nice.
Don't be a fat slob, and you're going to be fine. You know, have a drink, have a steak or something. You'll be fine.
What is it? What is it? I think Chesty said that, where life is judged on a sliding scale or something like that. Or it's graded on a curve. That was the one, which is good news and also bad news.
Well, my way of looking at it is, you know, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
Yeah. Well, that's what everybody wants, though.
What, the perfect?
Yeah, I need perfect, and if it's not going to be perfect, why should I even start? Like, I think, who is it? It's another. I hate how we always have a reference for Twitter on this, but some guy was like, "So if I work out and do this, and I do this, and I earn the money, and then all I'm going to get is some fucking single mom who's whatever." It's like, oh, he's one of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
It's like, I need a signed contract from the devil saying, after 6 workouts, you will get a 9 out of 10 girl. On the 7th workout, we'll upgrade her to a 10 for you, or I'm not going to move anything. It's like,
I mean, objectively, my most successful period with women was beginning in 2015 when I got divorced, and
I could see that. Your
and
attitude was probably perfect.
my attitude was already there. I'd already learned by trial and error, you know, which was a lot of failure, especially as a younger guy. I did pretty decent compared to what I hear now. I did great with women when I was younger, but you know, as far as the standards of the time went, you know, I was, you know, maybe mediocre at or average at best. But then, you know, post divorce, you know, I was killing it because I was traveling all the time for business, and you know, again, startup world. So there's, you know, it's not glamorous so much, but there's a lot of money flowing around. There are a lot of parties. There's a lot of socializing, a lot of get-togethers, a lot of big cities, and so I got to do all that stuff. You know, sarging on my own in Chicago or DC or wherever, and I didn't. You know, when I first started doing that, I really didn't know there was such a thing as, you know, actual game and pickup. So I was just trying to figure it out on my own. But it worked out, you know. I mean, I've had a great time since the divorce. And you know, I've been able to do everything I wanted to. And, you know, when I hear a lot of guys saying, well, you have to be this, you have to be that. Yeah, maybe if you're, you know, if you want to bang a movie star, you know, or some, you know, Instagram model with a, you know, perfect whatever, you know. But as far as, you know, I mean,
even then you don't.
Right. I mean, I've dated a lot of cute girls, and you know, they've all been younger than me, and it's just been, you know, it's been nice.
Here, I'll even show you why. Boyfriend.
Cocaine.
There's this chick
helps.
online called Sniper Wolf. I don't know if you've ever heard of her. Let me pull her up here, and I'm going to add it to the screen. So there's no dead air. I'm telling you guys what I'm doing as I do it.
Booger sugar. I like that.
So Sniper Wolf is an e-thought, and she's really popular. That's who she's with. He's a fat fuck, man. He's got John Anthony passed out at Denny's energy about him. You know what I mean? And she is like the hottest e-girl. Well, one of them anyway. That other one, the one I talked about, who was like, she live streamed calling her boyfriend an abuser or whatever. The other one, Amaranth, the top streamer guy. Yeah. He's a fat fuck too. So like all these hottest chicks making bank have the most dirtbag Amish bearded boyfriends ever. And so I refuse to believe. I think there's something. I don't know. I have a couple theories. I have a feeling the guy has game, but I think it's mostly just emotional investment. Once the girl makes the decision that this is the guy for me, their ego invested in it, and they refuse to admit that they could do better, because then that would mean admit they're wrong. Is that true? I don't know, but I can wrap a theory around it and sell some merch. So fuck it. Right, close enough. Right. What do you think? You don't think?
I think, you know, that
I've seen some of the girls. You posted some photos privately, and I've seen it. And I was like, no offense, man, but kind of making a reference to you with girls that I'm like, she's much cuter than you, man.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I'm a 5 on a good day, but you know,
You only need to be a 5, I think. Maybe that's just it. Girls just really don't care about looks that much.
well, I mean, I think that I mean, you know, there's an element of game there, and I usually, you know, the first thing most, you know, when I've met chicks off of, you know, Match or Tinder or something, you know, the one of the first things I always say is like, you know, you look a lot better in person than you do in your pictures. And I was like, all right, well, thanks. I guess that's good. And
That's a neg.
yeah, but you know, you know, I'm able to have fun, you know, and you know, chicks want somebody who, you
Maybe
know,
that's it. Maybe it's just sheer boredom.
yeah, that's why I get dates. They're just bored. So they're like, oh, I'll go with this guy.
Yeah, I don't mean it as in they're just bored. I don't
No,
want
I
to
know.
minimize that boredom. I think it's like really guys are that boring that just
Yeah.
not being boring is the six-pack abs.
Yeah.
The
Probably.
emotional glory hole of six-pack abs. There's a
Well,
convoluted metaphor for you.
Rob and I talk about this all the time. You know, Rob, you know, by all objective standards in the manosphere, Rob should, you know, Rob should not be getting dates at all at
Oh,
this
dude, he
point.
should be in Elect Minisan by the
And
Manosphere's judgment.
and you know, Rob and I, you know, Rob and I swap stories all the time about, you know, our dating life and everything else. And you know, even little spur girl that, you know, I dated for 3.5 years now, and we've kind of taken a break for logistical reasons, but I mean, you know, her first word to me was, you know, when we talked about it, I was like, well, you know, you didn't make me wait 3 days to or 3 dates to you know, to do it. And she was like, you were just too charming. And I was
I can
like,
see that.
all right.
I would only
And
make you wait 2 dates. But I'm the 36-year-old woman now, so I expect the best.
Yeah.
You understand, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right,
I
I
mean,
guess I got to let this go. We got who's hosting? Was it Troy hosting today? He's hosting Rule 0. I don't know what the topic is. I got to go look. Like I said, I'm fucking talking too much this week, and after these 2 hours, I'm going to sit there and stare at the wall.
yeah.
So what about you? Oh, do me a favor in either the private chat or message me the link to your crypto course. I really do want you guys to try this out. The reason I like it, I haven't taken it yet, but the reason I like it is because, like you said, he's not trying to just sell you, this is how you make $1 million. It's literally like how to not be retarded and lose money by being grifted on crypto. And I love the risk analysis. And I could swear this space could use a lot more of people showing you how not to fuck up as opposed to how to shoot for the stars.
Yeah, it's well, you can find it just nickaugust.xyz, and there's a link to the course info page there. Registration is over tonight because course starts tomorrow, but you can still register until 11:59 Pacific time tonight.
Now you're making me go hunt for it. Remember, audience is lazy. You got to make it clickable.
Yeah,
I got it though. I got it.
it's easy to find. But yeah, it's kind of like the crypto version of being the best version of yourself. You know, you may not, you may be 5'10" and not 6'2" or whatever. But if you maximize all of your strengths, then you have your best chance of being successful. And so that's the way I approach this thing. And so I try to give everybody. I want them to finish the course with whether they decide they want to put their money into crypto or not. They're like, okay, I understand what this is and how it operates. And another reason I think that's important, and I'll wrap this up, is that the whole world is moving towards digital currency. Central bank digital currency is what the governments are implementing. Crypto is an alternative to that and a better alternative to that. But either way, it's important going forward to understand what this is and how it works, because more and more it's going to affect everybody's personal finances and also global economics. So it's good to know.
You heard him, guys. Get on there. I put a link in the description. Make sure to click on it, check it out. Even if you're not going to buy it, at least take a look, because trust me, it's actually worth it. I like it too, because you have like the sales pages when everybody wants to sell something, it's got the same personal story, and you have to scroll so fucking far to get to the link at the bottom. They're like making sure you're invested before you even get to the bottom. You don't do that. It's actually really nice, clear, and concise. So,
Well, one I have a good track record of not, bullshitting except for entertainment. So, as far as the real stuff goes, and I'm not making my living off of this, so it's like I don't have to like grind it and hard sell it. I can just be like, hey, here's what I'm doing. If you want to do it, love to have you. If not, whatever.
All right, fair enough. Okay, that's it, guys. Going to Troy. Outro, and let's go off. Stick around for a sec after. I got a story for you.
79T, 2458, Learning Corp, Little Red Riding Hood, take 1.